the Planning Commission meeting of October the 26th, 2022. I'll call the meeting to order at 6 o'clock. Can I get a roll call? Please?
Yes. Oh,
I'll start again.
okay.
Good evening. This is the Planning Commission meeting of October 26th, 2022. We'll call to order at 6 o'clock. Can a roll call attendance, please?
Commissioner Stevens?
Here.
Commissioner Bedoya?
Here.
Vice Chair Calindras?
Here.
And Chairman Smith?
Here. Do we have any adjustments to the agenda tonight?
No adjustments.
Do we have any conflicts of interest to disclose tonight? All right, with that, we'll move to the public comment period for items not on the agenda. This meeting will be open to the public and conducted in a virtual format to be inclusive of all participation preferences. Public comment participation is encouraged by emailing any comments to the city clerk's office or by calling in using the phone number provided on the front of the agenda. Do we have any public comments tonight?
I have no written comments. Rudy, do we have anyone on the line? Rudy, can you hear us? I'll check in with him, and if we do, we'll
We'll come back.
come back.
Okay. So we'll move on to action items and the public hearings tonight. Item number 1 is approval of the minutes. Do we have any comments or do we have a motion?
Move to approve the minutes dated September 13th, 2022.
Second. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Stevens?
Yes.
Commissioner Bedoya?
Yes.
Vice Chair Calindras?
Yes.
And Chairman Smith?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, item number 2, public hearing of plot plan for the construction and operation of an outdoor storage yard. It's plot plan 2022-0458 for construction and operation of an outdoor storage yard, 400-foot office trailer with 3 storage sheds and one 2,400 square foot and two 3,000 square foot on a 3.4 acre parcel located on the southeast corner of Euclid Avenue and 3rd Street in the community commercial zone. Staff report, please.
Good evening, Chairman and Commissioners. Carol Kendrick, Planning Staff, presenting the 84 Lumber Project, which includes the plot plan 2022-0458. This application is for an outdoor storage yard with 3 open-face storage sheds and a 400 square foot modular office building. The project processed 2 preliminary review applications, one in early 2021 and one in 2022. The first one included a review of the conceptual site plan, and staff provided comments back in April of last year. The second preliminary review consisted of a meeting with the applicant and staff to discuss project concerns prior to their formal entitlement. The project is a 3.4 acre site. It's undeveloped and it has existing curb with a combination of asphalt and concrete along Euclid Avenue and the 3rd Street frontages. The parcels to the north, south, and east are commercially zoned, and they include Ferrellgas, A&A Fence Company, and a small miscellaneous commercial business center. To the west is D'Angelo Company that provides waterwork and fire protection services. The project site and the properties to the north, south, and east are zoned community commercial with a general plan designation of general commercial. The property to the west is zoned manufacturing with an industrial designation. The applicant is requesting the proposed application to supplement the storage needs for their existing facility on First and Beaumont Avenue. This site is approximately 215 feet from the existing 84 Lumber location and is separated by the Ferrellgas parcel. The project will include parking for office space, and it does include deliveries that consist of 2 to 3 tractor trailers in the morning between 6 and 7 a.m. and between 3 and 4 p.m. Outdoor deliveries will occur during the same delivery hours, but will utilize 3 to 5 box trucks. This project is exempt from CEQA and is considered an infill exemption, which is a class 32. The property owners that live within own property within a 300-foot radius of the site were notified of the public hearing on September 30th of 2022 with a 10-day public hearing notice. In addition to being advertised in the Press Enterprise, Staff has received no comments prior to the preparation of the staff report. Under the Beaumont Municipal Code, it does allow the Planning Commission the authority to approve a plot plan, and the proposed use of storage of lumber and wood products is a permitted use in the community commercial zone. The project has made all the findings that are required for a plot plan, which are included in your staff report. So at this time, staff would request that the Planning Commission hold a public hearing, approve plot plan PP 2022-0458, subject to the conditions of approval, and direct staff to prepare a notice of exemption for the applicant to file with the Riverside County Clerk Recorder. This concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have. I know the project engineer is here, and I believe that the project applicant is participating via Zoom.
All right, thank you. Questions for staff? Commissioner Stevens? Commissioner Bedoya?
No.
Commissioner Calendars?
No question at this time.
That'll be a question for the applicant. All right. So we'll open the public hearing then at 6:06 PM. Do we have any requests to speak on this item?
Yes, I believe we have a caller on the line. Rudy, your caller is for this item, item 2?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, go ahead and transfer them in. Caller, can you hear us? Caller, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you, but I don't need to be announced. I'm just here to answer any questions on the applicant for the number 2.
Okay. Well, I guess that, do we have any questions for the applicant? Mr. Stevens? My only question is we talked about delivery trucks coming in and out. Is the, for pickups of lumber, is that going to be by the private contractors entering that portion of the yard, or are there going to be some kind of intermediate trips in between your two facilities?
Jim, did you want to address that?
Can you folks hear me?
Yes.
Hi, it's Jim Zonik from 84 Lumber. We will have a few trucks, as I stated in the statements of operations, that's a satellite for the other store. So we have our own truckers and our own haulers. So they would be hired by us. So if there is a delivery that's actually 84 Lumber truck deliveries.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Chairman, I'd also like to point out that during the review of the project, staff did raise concerns about any potential of like a forklift driving down 3rd Street. So we did put conditions in and talk with the applicant that would not be a permittable activity for this project.
Okay. Thank you. Any other requests to speak? All right, we'll close. All right, we'll close the public hearing then at 6:08. Do you have any further discussion or a motion?
I motion to approve.
Second?
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Stevens?
Yes.
Commissioner Bedoya?
Yes.
Vice Chair Calindras?
Yes.
Chairman Smith?
Yes. All right. Thank you. Item number 3, public
Thank you so
hearing
much.
of specific plan amendment and tentative parcel map. This is for specific plan amendment SP 2022-00048 and tentative parcel map 38232 to reflect the current intensity of commercial development on the subject parcels, including lot areas, setbacks, parking, building colors, and landscaping, and to request to subdivide 17.3 acres into 4 lots for financing purposes. Staff report, please.
Thank you, Chairman and Commissioners. Carol Kendrick, Planning Staff. I do want to update the case number. It's SP 2022-0008. We have an extra number in there, so it's a housekeeping item. Just to give you a little background on this project, in September of 2006, the City Council adopted a resolution and a negative declaration for the Marketplace Beaumont specific plan and approved a plot plan to establish the project. The Marketplace Beaumont specific plan called for the development of a 17.3 acre multi-tenant shopping center with a little under 195,000 square feet of commercial retail uses and associated parking. That project has been fully developed and operational. In September of 2021, the new property owner submitted a preliminary review application that was reviewed by the Development Review Committee in September of 2021, and we did provide written comments to the applicant based on their request. On March 18th of this year, we did receive a request to amend the specific plan amendment, which is included as attachment A. And the reason to amend that originally was to allow for the subdivision. The specific plan does have minimum lot size requirements, so that triggered the specific plan amendment, but the applicant decided, since they were cracking that open, they wanted to go ahead and amend it to reflect what's actually out on the ground. They've updated the parking and provided a parking analysis to support the existing parking that's out there. They're updating updated the square footages, again, to reflect what is out there on the site. Their specific plan has colors that are indicated for the building, so they're wanting to refresh the shopping center, and so they're updating those. So again, they're just trying to update the specific plan so it really reflects what's out there. And then they are proposing to subdivide the property to sell off a couple portions of the properties to some of the businesses. Some of the concerns that were raised by the Development Review Committee were reciprocal parking and access. The applicant has provided a reciprocal easement agreement that has been reviewed by staff. It does address common lot maintenance, access, utilities, and parking. Again, they are updating the development standards, the color palette, and the parking requirements. As I mentioned before, this is a 17.3 acre site and it's fully developed. It has existing curb, gutter, sidewalk, off-site, and on-site landscaping improvements. And it's currently occupied by Best Buy, Ross Dress for Less, Bed Bath & Beyond, and a large variety of restaurant, retail, and service uses. Walmart is located to the west, California Highway Patrol, Rite Aid, Sonic, Panera, and Les Schwab, and several restaurants are located to the south across 2nd Street. And the Sun Lake Shopping Center is located in the city of Banning, is east of the subject property. And the I-10 is located directly north of the center. Subject property is zone specific plan with a general plan designation of general commercial. To the north is local commercial with a downtown mixed-use designation. To the south is a community commercial zoning designation with a general plan of general commercial. As mentioned before, to the east, we have the city of Banning, and then to the west, we have another specific plan, which is the Beaumont Retail Partners, which is the Walmart, and that does have a general plan designation of general commercial. Under the California Government Code Section 65453A, it does allow for specific plans to be adopted, amended in the same manner as a general plan. And in Chapter 17.02.090D, the Planning Commission shall act to recommend to City Council approval with modifications or denial of the proposed application. A majority vote of the entire Planning Commission is required to recommend approval or approval with modifications. The Planning Commission, also under Section 16.04.02, is designated as an advisory committee charged with reviewing and making recommendations on all proposed parcel map, land divisions, and tentative subdivision maps in the city. You are authorized to conditionally approve or disapprove all tentative maps and make recommendations to the City Council for final approval. Property owners located within a 300-foot radius were notified of the public hearing on September 30th of 2022. Staff has not received any comments regarding the proposed project. From a CEQA standpoint, a mitigated negative declaration was done for this project back in 2006, and it did assess the environmental impacts of the overall project. Execution of this amendment and the subdivision map will not have any impact on the project that was not previously analyzed. Therefore, staff believes that the project continues to adhere to the previously approved mitigated negative declaration. So at this time, staff recommends that the Planning Commission hold a public hearing. Forward a recommendation of approval to the City Council to adopt the specific plan amendment SP 2022-0008 to the Beaumont Marketplace specific plan, and forward a recommendation of approval to the City Council for tentative parcel map 38232, which is PM 2022-0011, subject to the attached conditions of approval. This concludes my presentation. I believe we have the applicant in the audience, and his consultant, I believe, is participating via Zoom.
Thank you. Questions for staff? Commissioner Stevens?
Yeah, I think most likely staff on this one. Do we have any of the business tenants present, or have they written any comments or anything like that?
We've received no comments on this project.
Okay, so my question would be, is there any, negative effects on these tenants by approving this tonight?
Well, the specific plan amendment, again, will bring the document into conformance with what is on the ground out there. So I think that kind of works better for them because, for instance, the parking, then instead of being non-conforming, it shows that it's a conforming use. So I think that it actually bodes well for the applicant or for the tenants. The property owners here, so I don't know if they've had discussions with the tenants, but they may be able to speak to that.
Thank you, that's all.
Do we know if they're subdividing it, right, to 6 different parcels, and they're selling off to the tenants, or is this different investors, or?
So they're proposing 4 parcels, so the property owners here, and they can address that if you'd like to call them up.
I was gonna say the map looks like it's parceling out for Chase Bank, Bank of America, and Taco Bell separate from the rest of the map. No, I think with the reciprocal parking agreements and access on there, it doesn't make any substantive site plan or changes to the site, doesn't affect the leasing ability. Specific plan seems like it's cleanup items, as you kind of mentioned on there. Yeah, I think it's fairly straightforward. Any other questions for staff? All right, we'll open up the public hearing then at 6:17. Do we have any requests to speak on this item?
I don't have any written comments. Rudy, do we have anyone on the line?
I have no callers on the line.
Anyone from the audience would like to speak?
Are there any questions for the applicant? No. All right, we'll close the public hearing then at 6:18. Any further discussion? Or otherwise, I will entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Stevens?
Yes.
Commissioner Bedoya?
Yes.
Vice Chair Colindres?
Yes.
Chairman Smith?
Yes. All right. Item number 4, public hearing of request for minor modification to vesting tentative map and addition of pocket park located within the Fairway Canyon development. Vesting tentative track map 31462-26 for a request for minor modification to add a new street, Josh Drive, with connection between Ford Street and Tuckwit Canyon Parkway, and the addition of a 0.16 acre pocket park located on Lot 80, vesting tentative map 31462-26 and planning area 18A within the Fairway Canyon development. Staff report, please.
Good evening, Chairman and Commissioners. Carol Kendrick, Planning Staff, presenting this minor modification to the vesting tentative tract map 31462-26, which is located in Fairway Canyon. As previously mentioned, it is in Planning Area 18A of the Oak Valley and SCPGA Golf Course, commonly referred to as Fairway Canyon. Planning Area 18A is located on the west side of Tuckwit Canyon, south of Mickelson Drive and north of Sorenstam Drive. This applicant is currently processing a final map for the subject property, and the proposed modifications are being requested due to the comments received on the final map review. So just to give you a little background on the specific plan, it is approximately 7,500 acres, and it allowed for about 4,300 dwelling units, and it was adopted in the county of Riverside back in 2021, and it was annexed into the city in 2023. It's gone through a couple different amendments over the years, and the background on tentative tract map 31462, it was approved by the city council on October 7th of 2023, and it was to subdivide 960 acres into 3,300 parcels. The map had 3 substantial conformance applications processed, with the last 2 occurring in 2014 and 2016. Fairway Canyon has constructed phase 1, 2, and 3 of the development and is currently constructing in phase 4. The subject property is located within phase 4 of the development, and more specifically in planning area 18A. It is in your staff report shown as Exhibit C. So this one's kind of a little different. The municipal code states that the proposed minor change would be subject to the Beaumont Municipal Code, section 16.32.020. And it states that a request of approval for a minor change to approved tentative map shall be filed with the planning department and referred to the Land Development Committee, which is what we call our Development Review Committee. The Development Review Committee reviewed this request on September 22nd of this year and provided a recommendation of approval. The advisory agency shall consider the matter, review the recommendation of DRC, and make a decision on the request. The other thing that's interesting for this particular section of the code, it states that this minor change shall not require a noticed public hearing. However, the advisory agency or the city council may at their discretion allow testimony to be given on the proposed change. No public hearing notice or legal advertisement was conducted regarding the proposed application, consistent with the Beaumont Municipal Code. As mentioned in the title, the applicant is requesting a new street, which is called Josh, and then they are converting lot 80 into a 0.16 acre pocket park. This project did have an environmental impact report that was certified and prepared in 2001, and it's had its latest addendum that was approved by council in 2014. Execution of this minor modification to the subdivision map will require adherence to the mitigation monitoring program established for the project, and would be consistent with, would not provide any additional impacts that weren't previously analyzed. So at this time, staff would recommend that Planning Commission hold a public hearing and approve a minor modification to vesting tentative tract map 31462-26, which is TM 2022-0010. And we do have the applicant here to answer any questions as well.
All right, thank you. Any questions for staff?
Not right now.
No questions.
Actually, I think this modification was just one residential lot that's impacted, that's, being converted in the street. I think it makes sense as providing a second access point for that planning area out to Tuckwood Canyon Parkway. It's 3 access points instead of 2 now. I think that's probably an improvement over what the original approval was. Okay, we'll open the public hearing then at 6:24. Do you have any requests to speak on this item?
I don't have any written comments. Rudy, do we have anyone on the line?
I have no callers on the line.
All right. Any questions for the applicant?
I don't know if it's applicant or staff, but the new Josh Drive, they're not fully built out, is from what these maps are saying, right?
Correct. So they're trying to get their map recorded so that they can start developing in that area. And so one of the corrections was they were showing a street on there that wasn't part of the vesting tentative map, so.
Okay, that's it.
Commissioner Bedoya?
No, I have no question.
Cornelius?
No questions.
Then with that, we'll close the public hearing at 6:25. Any further discussion, or I'll entertain a motion?
I move to approve, what is it? Number
C4.
C4. C4 track map 3146-26.
Second?
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Stevens?
Yes.
Commissioner Bedoya?
Yes.
Vice Chair Calindras?
Yes.
Chairman Smith?
Yes. All right, item number 5, public hearing of plot plan and variance on an existing storage facility. Plot plan 2022-0475 and variance V 2022-0110 for the construction and operation of a 75,250 square foot expansion to an existing storage facility consisting of 3 one-story buildings and 2 two-story. Staff report, please.
Good evening, Chairman and Planning Commission, Carol Kendrick, Planning Staff. So the proposed application is for the Beaumont Self-Storage, and staff did receive these applications back on June 20th this year. And it entails the continuation of an existing storage facility that will include a 75,000 square foot of new self-storage buildings. It'll be 3 new buildings and 3 single-story buildings and 2 two-story buildings, and a variance to encroach 10 feet into the First Street landscape setback. Plot plan is required to establish any new use and construct and operate public storage facilities within the zone, and the variance is required. It is a request for relief from zoning provisions. Just to give you a little bit of history on the Beaumont Self-Storage Project, it had 3 applications on file from 2001 that included Plot Plan 01-PP-02, tentative parcel map 30426, and a negative declaration. Staff was unable to locate the details regarding those original applications, but did find building permit records for the facility that included 86,500 square foot of storage buildings that were constructed in 2003. We were able to find a minor plot plan that was done in 2026 to add an additional 4,300 square feet to the existing facility. The applicant was so kindly provided the site plan that was stamped and approved. It just showed the expansion, and it's included as attachment K to your staff report. As part of the preliminary review applications that we did with the applicant, there was a lot of discussion regarding these previous approvals. Due to plot plans only having a 1-year life, staff did indicate to the applicant that a new plot plan would be required, so that's why the applicant is before you today. The applicant was also advised that the development standards that were adopted by the City Council, that storage development standards were adopted by the City Council in July of 2021, that are included in section 17.11.1510, and it identifies following standards for storage uses. So if you recall, we did have a moratorium previously on storage uses, and then adopted the ordinance to regulate these. And so some of the standards include allowing self-storage or storage uses only on irregularly shaped parcels not suitable for commercial or industrial producing jobs. They require enhanced screening measures such as a solid masonry wall or mature landscaping, security cameras and lighting, and standard conditions of approval for storage uses. This subject property is an infill site that currently contains a non-conforming use and structures, and it is not suitable for commercial or industrial job producing uses due to the size and configuration. This project has been conditioned with the storage regulations identified in the Beaumont Municipal Code. The subject site is 1.9 acres, and it includes 3 parcels and a portion of a 4th parcel that contains the existing storage facility. The 3 parcels contain a total of 2 single-family residents currently. The residence on the hard corner of First and California consists of 2 parcels, has curb gutter and parkway sidewalk. The residence located further north on California Avenue has no street improvements. There's an RV parking for the existing use that's situated between those 2 existing single-family residences, and it does have curb, gutter, and parkway sidewalk improvements. The existing Beaumont self-storage facility is located to the east. Topline Industrial Supply is located to the west, and SoCal Gas is located to the south, with vacant land to the north. The zoning for this property and all the surrounding property is manufacturing, and the general plan designation is industrial. As proposed, the project is proposing 5 new storage buildings that include that total 72,250 square feet. As I mentioned, the exterior buildings along the street frontages are single-story. The 2 interiors are 2-story. This expansion is being incorporated into the existing Beaumont self-storage facility, and the existing management staff will continue to manage the expansion from the original office at their existing facility. The project is not proposing any additional employees or office space. The applicant is requesting a variance to encroach 10 feet into the First Street landscape setback while maintaining a 15-foot landscape setback. The applicant has included 2 site plan theme schemes with the submittal. Scheme A, which is attachment B, is a variance scenario in which the new building frontage on First Street maintains the alignment with the existing building of the currently operating self-storage facility. Scheme B is attachment C, which is based on the ultimate required setback of the new general plan, and in the event that the variance of Scheme A is denied, the applicant is requesting approval of Scheme B. The applicant has prepared variance findings, and they are provided as attachment I in your staff report. There is also the site plan and colored elevations that are included to the staff report. We did pass out a updated conceptual grading plan to the Planning Commission, and it is available at the front of the room. And this project is proposing customer access from 6 a.m. to 7:45 p.m., 7 days a week, but will be closed on holidays. It does employ 2 staff members with office hours between 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday through Saturday. There will be a 24-hour security system, including key-padded security gates and monitored and alarm storage units. The project is exempt from CEQA under exemption number 32, which is an infill development. Property owners located within a 300-foot radius of the project site were notified of the public hearing on September 30th of 2022, in addition to a public notice being placed in the Press Enterprise. Staff has not received any comments regarding the proposed project. The proposed plot plan and variance findings are included in your staff report. And then we also did pass out a revised condition number 80 that is proposed by Public Works that requires the street improvements along the existing storage facility to match with the new facility and match with the ultimate improvements. So we have that proposed. So at this time, staff would recommend that the Planning Commission hold a public hearing, approve plot plan PP 2022-0475, subject to the attached modified conditions of approval, and approve variance V 2022-0110, and direct staff to prepare a notice of exemption for the applicant to file with the Riverside County Clerk Recorder. This concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Questions for staff?
You know, Carol's been great at answering my questions. I do have some questions on the encroachment of 10 feet. We were asking 25, and they want to go 10 feet into that. And does that line up then with the other parcels on there? off of like California and First. Does that just make everything line up better, or what's the purpose of
And
that?
yes, that is. So that's why the applicant is requesting it, is because surrounding the subject parcels, it's all developed, so we're not going to get the ultimate right of way. And those street lines are probably going to remain in place for some time. So they would rather match with that than have kind of a disjointed section line.
And there's no negative effects to doing that, correct?
No, when you see these little infill pieces, it tends to be problematic if you start having the curb start jogging in and out, and it confuses drivers. So I think that's actually might be a more safe situation, but that's a planning opinion. That might be delving into Public Works territory here.
Well, my understanding is we are getting the ultimate dedication for the roadway. It's just whether or not the setback behind the right-of-way is going to be at what the new standard is versus what the variance is where the existing building sits. Correct?
Right.
Yeah, good evening. That is correct. Ultimate right-of-way and ultimate curb alignment.
Great. Thank you.
The other lots that are being consumed, are they vacant now, or are they, is there
So-
tenants there now?
So there's two existing single-family homes. So they're currently pre-existing non-conforming uses. So those homes are surrounded by this facility. Because they're pre-existing non-conforming uses, those homes, they can't do anything to expand the non-conformity. They can't do an addition, they can't do a patio because they're in a commercial zone and the homes are not allowed. So it's kind of a natural transition that it'll complete that area and will turn into a commercial corridor.
Since we're taking those two residents, are those two residents' houses going to our housing bank or no?
Yeah, for SB 330, that would apply to just a zone change. These are non-conforming already, so, and we're not changing a zone here, so no, we're not required to put those into the bank.
I think the staff report was thorough. I don't have any questions for you at this point. We'll open up the public hearing then at 6:37. Do you have any requests to speak on this item?
I have a request from David. Was that for this item?
David was the previous item.
Previous, okay. He wrote 5. So I wasn't sure. Okay. I don't have any written comments. Did you want to speak, sir? Okay. Let me see if we have any callers on the line.
Okay.
Rudy, do we have any callers on the line?
I have no callers on the line.
Okay.
Okay. Can you just please state your name for the record?
Certainly. My name is Bruce Jordan. I'm the architect of the project. I represent Dr. Howard here. And first off, I wanted to compliment staff. We've been working through some difficult details, and they've been very good to work with, and very much appreciate that. I think we've hit at the right solution for the local community and so forth. I do want to state for the record that we do concur with the conditions of approval, including the modified conditions of approval in front of the existing property. So we are in agreement with the staff on all the conditions of approval. One of the things that we did when we started designing this project is to make sure that we blocked all of the views into the loading areas of the project. So I think we've been very successful at creating a very nice residential appealing outside and blocked all the views in and so forth. So there'll be very limited amount of light, very limited amount of noise that comes out of that. I designed Dr. Howard's original facility adjacent and also the RV facility across the street on First Street on the south side. And he's had very, very good response, and the public has responded very well to the new facility, and it's way ahead of lease up on occupancy, so the demand is definitely there. So I think this is the right project. We definitely concur with the variance, in that if you don't approve that variance, we're going to have a very awkward alignment, and there's going to actually create a little bit more view into the property. So I think the variance just maintains what looks normal to the eye and so forth, and is a very correct way of approaching this. So I just had those few comments. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Any questions for the applicant? I have a couple real quick ones. So all the 2 stories internal to the building, it's the 2 internal sites there. Is the existing kind of wing that's on your western property, is that being demolished?
There is an existing building that will be demolished
Okay.
to make room for the new, and correct that all the 2 stories are screened inside of the center of the site by the exterior 1 stories.
And then looking at the architectural sections, it looks like it's anticipated that there'll be a wrought iron fence between the 2 buildings, the existing and the new one on there. Is there a reason that's wrought iron and not, some kind of faux wall or some?
Well, the reason, the wrought irons where the gates are, so those are operable.
Okay, so that is going to be an access point into the facility?
That's correct. So those are operable. They're controlled by the security and the numerical keypad and so forth. So you have to be a customer to be able to operate those. And all entries and exits are recorded on security cameras.
Right. So on the grading plan, it shows a slope that's in that general area. So I just want to make sure the gate is going to be set back far enough to be able to get delivery vehicles and so forth out of the street right of way.
Yeah, well, we've definitely checked all of that and made that to work. So that all will comply.
So it's a rolling gate. But it's showing a sidewalk going up. I'm just kind of confused by that exhibit there, that frontage on First Street, because it's looking like there's a sidewalk there that's coming up
Let me
to
make
it.
sure I understand exactly where you're at on the property.
Okay, I'm looking at the First Street frontage.
Okay, the First Street. Yeah, so the First Street there, in the space between the buildings, there is no access there.
Okay. So, is there a reason that we, again, for view and, restricting on there, that we're looking at a wrought iron and not something that's a more permanent wall?
Well, we're going to have some landscaping in there. There'll be a little bit of parking, but there'll be landscaping, and it'll be very well screened. And the wrought iron matches the other access gates so that it all kind of matches. That was the intent.
Any questions for the applicant? I think I already asked you guys that, didn't I? I did. Okay. We'll close the public hearing then at
Thank you.
6:43. Any further discussion up here? I just want to make sure that, for that area that we are adequately screening it, we're going to have that gate on there with landscaping. Okay. All right, I'll entertain a motion.
Move to approve item C5, plot plan 2022-0475 with the variance 2022-0110.
Second. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Stevens?
Yes.
Commissioner Bedoya?
Yes.
Vice Chair Calindras?
Yes.
Chairman Smith?
Yes. All right. Item number 6, public hearing public hearing of request to subdivide tentative parcel map 38519 as a 3.5 acres into 3 lots ranging in size from 0.42 acres to 1.58 acres within the Sundance Pacific Plan and located on the northwest corner of 8th Street and Highland Springs Avenue. Staff report, please.
Good evening, Chairman and Commission. Carol Kendrick, planning staff, again, presenting tentative parcel map 38519. This is a map within the Sundance Corporate Specific Plan, and it is requesting to subdivide 1.58 acres into 3 parcels. Just to give you a little background on this property, it was originally the Deutsch Specific Plan that was approved in 1991 for approximately 1,100 acres of mixed use, including residential, commercial, and public facilities. In 2004, the City Council approved the Sundance Specific Plan, which was the first amendment to that Deutsch Specific Plan. and it was a comprehensive update to that. In 2006, the city council approved further amendments changing the land use, and the last amendment was back in 2018. The subject property is located in planning area 10 of the Sundance specific plan, and it's designated as commercial. It is intended to provide for service, commercial, and retail uses to serve the neighborhoods of the Sundance community, and permitted uses include a variety of commercial and office uses that are listed in Section V of the development regulations of the Sundance specific plan. The existing center is partially developed with a mix of medical, office, and service uses. No tenants for the proposed subdivision have been identified to date, but will need to be consistent with the specific plan and file proper applications with the city. Subject property is currently partially developed with parking, drive aisles, and some on and off-site landscaping. The future subdivision will advance the development of the project of the site to allow separate ownership interest within the center. As I mentioned on a previous project tonight, the Beaumont Municipal Code, Chapter 16, does allow the Planning Commission as an advisory committee to provide recommendations to the City Council. The subject property is zoned specific plan, as well as the property to the north and the west, all included in the Sundance specific plan. The general plan is designated as single-family residential, which that is going to be part of a cleanup item that will be coming in the future. To the north, south, and west are general plan designations of single-family residential. And then to the east, we have the city of Banning. The proposed lots will have a reciprocal parking and access agreement. There are CC&Rs that are adopted on the subject parcel. They were recorded back in 2017, and Article 2.2 of the CC&R states that the common area is reserved for non-exclusive use of owners, occupants, and their permittees, and may be used for vehicle driving, parking, pedestrian traffic, among several other items. There are also several other articles that are identified in the staff report that address parking and access concerns that staff had when the application did come forward. As part of the application process, we did notify property owners within a 300-foot radius of the subject property. This notice was sent on September 30th of 2022, and we did place a advertisement in the Press Enterprise. Staff has not received any comments on the proposed application. This project is exempt under CEQA under Section 15315, which is a subdivision of four or fewer parcels. In addition, there was an environmental impact report that was prepared and certified in 1991 for this specific plan, with the latest addendum approved by the City Council in 2018. The EIR and the findings made by the City Council remain pertinent and adequate for the use of the project, and approval of the proposed subdivision will not have any impact on the project that was not previously analyzed. And the overall project continues to be required to adhere to the mitigation monitoring program established for the project. So at this time, staff would recommend that the Planning Commission hold a public hearing, forward a recommendation of approval to the City Council to approve tentative parcel map 38519, which is parcel map PM 2022-0013 for a 2-year period, subject to the attached conditions of approval. This concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Questions for staff?
No.
Got 2 commercial financial subdivisions in one night. This is, we got a lot going on today. Yeah, I don't have any questions for staff. I feel like I should ask one at least, right? So there's a future easement that's located there at the Highland Springs and 8th. Is that just intended for the monument?
It's a good question. I'm not familiar with that future easement.
I thought it was odd to say, yeah, just list on the map future easement. It kind of looks like it's the monument location, but
Yeah, certainly.
Because the monument's already there.
yeah, I was gonna say, okay. You're just surprised that it hadn't already been recorded at some point on there, but, okay. Yeah, I guess otherwise parcel 2 gets to control the monument.
One question. This has nothing to do with the existing lighting, of course, on the property.
No, this is
Does
just
not-
the subdivision of parcels.
Doesn't change it, so we'll have to talk later about the complaints I've heard about the lighting in that area
Okay.
on the rest.
All right, we'll open a public hearing then at 6:50. Do we have any requests to speak on this item?
I have no written comments. Rudy, do we have anyone on the line?
I have no callers on the line.
Like, I should wait 30 seconds here to close at 6:51.
Closing at the same time.
All right, any further discussion, or otherwise I will entertain a motion?
Motion to approve. Do I have to read out the parcel map number
You say as presented.
as presented?
I second.
Okay, roll call, please.
Commissioner Stevens?
Yes.
Commissioner Bedoya?
Yes.
Vice Chair Calindres?
Yes.
Chairman Smith?
Yes. All right. Item number 7, public hearing for extension of time for our plot plan. Consider a request for a 1-year extension of time for plot plan PP 2021-0335. Staff report, please.
We're going to give Carol a break.
All right.
So I can do a little work tonight, too. Christina Taylor, Deputy City Manager. Before you this evening tonight is consideration of a request for 1-year extension of time for a plot plan. The project is known as Terragen. It's a battery energy storage facility located on Veely Avenue. The project was approved at Planning Commission on October 26, 2021. And it's for a 100 megawatt or 400 megawatt lithium ion stationary battery energy storage project. It's adjacent to the Edison substation, and they will be connecting into the Edison substation in order to feed the grid. So the Beaumont Municipal Code, Chapter 17.02070 plot plans says that a plot plan permit subject to lapse may be renewed up to 1 additional year, provided the applicant files an application for renewal with the planning director prior to the expiration date and subject to consideration in a public hearing. The applicant has met those requirements. An extension was filed. This item would have been heard prior to the 26th, except we had the scheduling issues earlier in the month, so it's now on this agenda. The proposed request remains exempt from the provisions of CEQA. And at this time, staff is recommending commission hold a public hearing and approve a 1-year extension of time for plot plan 2021-0335, which would set a new expiration date of October 26, 2023. I'm available if you have any questions.
Thank you. Questions for staff?
A couple. Is the applicant here by any chance?
I don't think we have anyone here. Do we have anyone on the Zoom?
No one on Zoom.
Okay.
Okay. So I remember this coming to Planning Commission and approving this. I can certainly believe, just in general, supply chain issues and that sort of thing that we've been experiencing globally, essentially. Is there anything? This is a 1-year extension, but is there anything that you've done perhaps in the past or recommended in the past that it's contingent upon perhaps the supplies getting better? In other words, what if this continues and we already gave a continuance and can they ask for another one despite the supply chain issues and that sort of thing?
So the municipal code does not allow for an additional extension beyond this. What would happen is the plot plan would come back as a new plot plan. And I know Nate's been around long enough to remember we did this with Hidden Canyon probably 3 or 4 times, where we had a plot plan and then we had an extension and that expired and the plot plan would come back. And essentially you get the same iteration of what you had, same conditions and so on. There are a number of issues out there other than supply chain. Obviously, they're working with Edison, which is a very long and arduous process in general. So I know they've been diligently working with that as well. But essentially what would happen is if they were not able to pull permits on this by October 26th of 23, then they could file a new plot plan application, which would come back again and start the process over. The only thing that could fix that would be a change to the code.
Got it. And unfortunately, that's time spent for you to prepare these documents. And is there another fee then if this has to come back? So that's what I was looking at. Is there any way to make it contingent upon these issues so that money's not wasted and, time and staff?
Right. Yeah. The only other thing we've done is a development agreement, which is something that could vest an entitlement for a certain number of years. They haven't requested that, so that's something that could also be considered if we think it's going to continue down this path of either not being able to get supply or not being able to address the issues with the Edison. But if they get to the point where they can pull a permit, we consider that progress, and then they have
I see.
permit timing then kicks in.
Okay.
So if they do pull a grading permit and they're waiting on just electrical components to come in, that would be progress on the,
Grading permit, typically we look at building permit is really what we want to see, but in this case, because there's not a ton of structural components, we may be able to consider grading, and I'd have to go back and look at the code to see if there's any distinction as to what it says, whether it's a building permit or grading permit.
the city require building permits for perimeter walls?
Yes, we would for perimeter walls, and they're going to have to do permits for the battery compartments themselves and some other components on the site.
Okay. So there's hope, I'm just looking out for, but if the code's the code, so.
Right, the code is the
Go
code,
against that,
so,
yeah.
and I'll have some comments on that on a much more global scale at the end of the meeting.
Yeah, I was going to echo Commissioner Stevens' sentiments on that one. I know in the wake of the hurricane that hit Florida, I've heard there's some electrical components that are pushing almost 60 weeks before they're going to be available. So, it's it's significant, so if they're able to pull the building permit and keep things active while they're waiting on their components, okay. We'll open the public hearing then at 6:58. Any requests to speak on this item?
I have no written comments. Rudy, do we have anyone on the line?
I have one caller on the line.
Okay, for this item? Rudy, you can go ahead and transfer in if you haven't already. Okay, got it. Thank you. Caller, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, go right ahead.
Okay. They can hear me?
Yes, you're on with commission.
Okay. Hello, everybody. Commissioner and staff, hello. I'm Mark Turner. I'm with Terrigen. I'm the applicant, and I was listening to you on the video feed, but I wasn't getting let in, so I called again and let them know that I was the applicant. And I know you had a question for me, so I thought I would get in here and answer any questions for you.
So I think the question that was just kind of in general is, for electrical components, that's what you're waiting on. Do you have an idea of when those might be available to be delivered for your project?
Yeah, so things are going very well on the project now. Give you some background. We had a contract with the utility to supply and bring this project online in summer of 2023. Unfortunately, due to the availability of batteries, that was delayed. And that we think we've solved that problem now. We've amended the contract so that we're now targeting the summer of 2024 to bring this project online. We have contracts to do that. We've issued a notice to proceed to our EPC providers. They're preparing the building permit applications as we speak, and we continue to engage with the city on on the beginning of that preparation process now. So I think the plan is, the middle of next year to get those applications in to the building department. Things are going very well. I can't guarantee that the supply chain issues won't, be a hindrance, but we have every intent to make this project operational by the summer of 2024. So it's going very well.
Thank you. Thank you for the update.
Sure.
Any other questions of the applicant?
No, just thank you for coming on and explaining that. We had a power outage last week for about 5
I see.
hours or so, and could use some power.
No, I understand. And, just maybe a little more flavor for you. September was a really important month, right? I'm sure you're all aware that we came very close to an outage in California, rolling blackouts in California. And, battery storage that did come online in time, it played a really important role for keeping us from an outage. I think we were just a couple of hundred megawatts away from one in September. And, by way of example, this project is 100 megawatts, right? It's 100 megawatts and 400 megawatt hours. So that means it can supply 100 megawatts for 4 hours straight. And that's enough, by the way, to supply around 80,000 homes. So it's a very important project for the local region. And, we're part of the future solution to ensure that doesn't happen, in the coming years.
Thank you.
Yeah, sure. Thank you all for your time, staff, and Commission. We really appreciate it.
All right, with that, we'll close the public hearing at 7:01. Any further discussion, or I will entertain a motion?
If there's no further discussion, I'd like to move to approve item C7 for a 1-year extension of plot plan 2021-0335, TerraGen.
Second.
All right, motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Stevens?
Yes.
Commissioner Bedoya?
Yes.
Vice Chair Calindres?
Yes.
Chairman Smith?
Yes. All right, item number 8, public hearing of conditional use permit and operation of a quick service coffee shop. Conditional use permit 2022-0065 for the new construction and operation of a 655 square foot quick service coffee shop with a drive-through and walk-up takeout window for Ziggy's Coffee on a 0.717 acre parcel located within the Beaumont Gateway Plaza in the community commercial zone. Staff report, please.
Good evening, Chairman and Commissioners. Carol Kendrick, Planning Staff. I do want to note that I did have assistance with the staff report from our new assistant planner, Ms. Jensen, that we'll introduce you to at the end of the meeting. But I did want to indicate that we did have some assistance on that, and we're grateful for that. This conditional use permit application was submitted to the city back on April 14th of this year. As previously noted, it's a 655 square foot building on a partially developed property. It is a quick service drive-through coffee shop with walk-up takeout order windows, no indoor dining, but includes 2 outdoor tables on a little less than 3/4 of an acre parcel located on the south side of First Street, west of Beaumont Avenue. Conditional use permits are required in the zone, in the community commercial zone for restaurants with a drive-through. This subject property is part of a larger planned development called the Beaumont Gateway Plaza that was approved back in December of 2006. This overall development allowed for a gas station with a convenience store, car wash, 2 drive-through restaurants that were approximately 3,200 square feet each, 7,000 square foot multi-tenant building for retail and service uses, and a 3,300 square foot dedicated to research and development uses. Back in 2008, the Planning Commission approved a modification to that development to modify the research and development uses to a 10-bay car wash and 14-bay automobile service facility showroom. That plan is attached to your staff report as attachment G. And then you may recall, some of you may recall, we did approve a conditional use permit for another parcel in this shopping center called Zendejas, and so they are moving forward. The applicant did process a preliminary review application in late 2021, and they did receive written comments from staff on the conceptual design. The main concerns raised during the preliminary review process included providing restroom facilities, a trip generation letter, and the requirement of a preliminary water quality management plan. As I mentioned previously, the applicant did submit a formal application back in April 2022. This was after the adoption of the general plan and zoning code update. So one of the things that happened with the zoning code update is it had some footnotes that were added to the permitted use table for these types of uses. So footnote number 2 says that these uses shall not be located on a parcel which is located within 1,000 feet of any school providing instruction in the 12th grade or below, a daycare center or youth center, and that new fast food restaurants should not be located within 1,000 feet of another restaurant. So we brought these concerns up with Sendejas, and again, the language says should and not shall, so it does give staff and the commission flexibility. The Mojave River Academy is a little under 100 feet away from this project. It's an independent study charter school. It does not provide any on-site instruction, so there'll be no interference with sensitive receptors, as noted in footnote 2. And the proposed drive-through is located at least a little under 100 feet from the existing Jack in the Box drive-through restaurant. Even though it says should and not shall, like I said, it does provide you flexibility. And this is kind of a tight site, and it's kind of hidden, so it would be really hard to develop. So we feel that the proposed use is appropriate at this location. As previously mentioned, this is a little under 3/4 of an acre site. It's primarily undeveloped. It does have some parking and drive aisles on the eastern portion of the property. And it does include curb, gutter, and sidewalk, off-site landscaping improvements that were installed when the original center was constructed. The parcel to the south is a vacant commercially zoned property. To the north is the existing 84 lumber that you heard earlier in the meeting. To the west is the existing SoCal Gas Company. And to the east is the existing developed Beaumont Gateway Plaza, which includes the Mojave River Academy, Subway, Shell gas station, convenience store, car wash, and Jack in the Box, and features Sendejas. Subject property is zoned community commercial with a commercial general plan designation, and it's similar zoning and general plan designations to the north, south, and east. And then to the west, we have a manufacturing zone and industrial designation. The project is proposing a 655 square foot coffee shop with the walk-up window. They are proposing a dual drive-through that will horseshoe and provide stacking for, it provides stacking for 14 vehicles, which exceeds the minimum requirement of 8 in the municipal code. They are providing a minimum of 10 parking spaces. Under the code, it's 1 space for 100 square feet, but you have to provide a minimum of 10. So even though the building is only 655 square feet, they are providing the minimum spaces and stacking, they exceed. And in addition, the applicant prepared a stacking study to demonstrate that the proposed project had adequate stacking. Some of the concerns that came up in the preliminary review and the formal entitlement or with uses like these, sometimes we've seen in other locations where they stack out onto city streets. So that was a huge concern for staff. And the way they have it designed, the stacking really is, like I said, they have the dual driveway with the 14 vehicles, and then they will stack in the throat of the center and not stack out onto First Street. So we did want to make sure that that was not going to be an issue that would occur with the site. The proposed hours are from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., 7 days a week. The project is exempt under CEQA as a Class 32 infill, as many projects were tonight. In addition, a negative declaration was prepared for the shopping center that was adopted back in December of 2006. The project as proposed is consistent with the previously adopted negative declaration. Property owners within a 300-foot radius were notified of this public hearing on September 30th of 2022, in addition to a public notice being placed in the Press Enterprise. We did receive an email from a Mr. Gary Miller on October 11th expressing concerns related to the Mojave River Academy. They had believed that the primary entrance for the proposed location would be off Beaumont Avenue. Staff did provide a site plan to the applicant and indicated that their primary drive and a portion of their property is from the First Street entrance, and so they were satisfied with that. I did pass that email out to the Planning Commission that indicates that they no longer have any concerns. The conditional use permit findings have been made and are included in your staff report. So at this time, staff would recommend that the Planning Commission hold a public hearing, approve conditional use permit 2022-0065, subject to the attached conditions of approval, and direct staff to prepare a notice of exemption for the applicant to file with the Riverside County Clerk Recorder. This concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
Questions for staff?
I was just a little confused on the on one of the maps. So the entrance to the coffee shop is on First Street or off of 79?
It's off of First Street. So on it's sheet T1 is a part of their site plan. Half of that driveway on First Street is under the property ownership. So their primary access will be from First Street. I mean, there will be access from Beaumont Avenue, but primarily it'll be from First Street.
It's on page 278. One of the maps says new accessible path of travel from building to the right of way. It just looked like like an S, sort of. So that's what I was curious about.
So that's for the ADA access, and so I think it's because of the grades out there that they have to kind of do that long way around.
Okay.
Mr. Bedoya?
I mean, just looking at this plan, it looks like the primary entrance could be from 79. If I'm looking, like, it looks like it goes, like you could come on First Street, but you can also come through in between.
Well,
That's the entrance, First Street, and this is
that's the
79.
car wash,
Yeah,
and that's the drive-through line for Jack in the Box.
okay. No, I don't have any questions. There were no comments from any of the other occupants of this, just this email? That's it?
Just this email.
This is a tough site. I mean, it's a good problem to have too many customers that are lining up out into the street, you know, business owners aren't gonna complain. But the concern I have is, you know, frequenting into that shopping center, that the entrance off of First Street, if they do start queuing into the throat, you know, are they gonna be able to have access coming out of either of the car wash or the Jack in the Box, or, you know, be able to have cars continue into there? Yeah, I don't know if we want to add a condition that says that, you know, we shouldn't allow for stopping or stacking of vehicles within that drive aisle. It is pretty narrow with those parking spaces there for, you know, just to get two cars through.
Okay. So you're proposing we add a condition?
Yeah, I mean, just something that we can kind of point to. You know, they've got 14 cars that can stack between the window where they're picking up and where they have their they're ordering, maybe you have another 2 or 3 that are waiting to place an order at some point, where it should be okay, but with the, the access for the drive-through circling back upon the entrance point for where people are heading in, you probably can get 2 cars into the throat between the main drive aisle and where this property is. You could see a situation where it does start to back up into that drive aisle. And while the stacking analysis shows that, that time prepare and order and that kind of stuff, that this equally is good within there, it's the more of the peak hour where you have people waiting to place the order that could be the concern on there. And I just don't want to see that have a negative impact on circulation throughout the site on that drive aisle.
So we would propose that the applicant maintains that the on-site circulation be maintained.
Right. I want to put, do not block parking spaces, or, something, you can put something along there that's, we won't have a red curb option because there's the parking spaces, but, you have something along there that you might be able to indicate that, if they're busy enough, pull into a parking space and walk up, or, you'll probably be served faster at that point if there's that many cars waiting. I can see cars leaving Jack in the Box. I've been by there in the morning, and, the line to get into the drive-through can back up on either side coming in and out already. I said, it's a good problem to have too many customers, but.
Well, and so coming out at Jack in the Box is really tight. You can't see coming
It is.
out there. I mean, it's.
Right.
It's a,
It is.
I'm scared.
It is. And then you get someone coming out of the car wash at the same time.
So maybe something to the fact that the applicant will maintain on-site circulation, including not allowing blocking of parking spaces or drive aisles?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It's a very challenging site. It sits in a hole. So you've got the switchback on the ADA already to get up to First Street. It's, there's a lot going on there. And not a lot of area. Any other questions for staff? Okay, we'll open the public hearing at 7:17. Do you have any requests to speak on this item? Well, do you mind if we check online first, and then?
Oh, I'm the applicant.
Oh, that's good. I just want to make, just get through if there is anybody online real quick.
I have no written comments. Rudy, do we have anyone on the line?
I have no callers on the line.
All right, then please come forward. You can state your name for the record, please.
Yes, thank you very much. Honorable Chairman, Vice Chairman, members of the Planning Commission. I'm Jack Lav here, LNS Architects. We're Beaumont, we're local Beaumont architect. We did this project design, and one of the things that the staff here at planning asked us to do was that stacking study, which of course is a difficult study because it, there are other prominent, car, facilities, for coffee that are all over California. So you have to kind of like project these different processes into this particular study. And there's, from our perspective, there's no chance in heck that you'll have 14 cars parked out there for this coffee shop, not by comparison to any of these other coffee shops. So we don't feel that the issue that you have raised is a problem. We have no problem with that comment being added to the conditions of approval. We do accept all the other conditions of approval as noted.
Okay.
So if you have any questions, be more than happy to answer those questions.
I think that sounds great. Yeah, again, the 14 makes sense for within from your order. It's just
Right.
that
It's a lot of cars. What do you think about
you
it?
get a crush of people wanting to order at
Yeah.
once.
There's probably, the stacking study, of course, takes into consideration the issue of the peak times that cars are, going to be there, which of course is morning, noon, at night. And
Right, and I've also been up to a coffee shop that someone's been to multiple times. They still look at the menu and go, I don't know.
we don't want to point any fingers at any of the other coffee shops here locally, but there are a few that have those issues. There's no question about that. But I don't believe in this case that would be the case.
Okay.
And that was one of the reasons why the larger circulation area was given in consideration to the property. So it's just kind of, when you think about it, even 650 square feet for a little coffee shop, we can't fill up a 3/4 acre site.
Right.
So there we go.
It looks like the site plan makes the most of what you can out of
Yes,
the
absolutely.
limited space that's available, so.
You bet. So thank you very much. Appreciate it very much.
Okay, thank you. Any other requests to speak?
No others.
All right, we'll close the public hearing at 7:20. Any other comments up here, or I will entertain a motion?
Motion to approve.
I'll second.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Stevens?
Yes.
Commissioner Bedoya?
Yes.
Vice Chair Kalindras?
Yes.
Chairman Smith?
Yes. All right. Final hearing item for the night. Item 9. Public hearing and consideration of proposed amendments to Beaumont Municipal Code, Chapter 17.02, Administration, Chapter 17.03.120, Permitted Uses for Base Zone Districts, and Chapter 17.19.120, Downtown Districts. Planning and Economic Development staff have been attending downtown business meetings and the Economic Development Committee meetings in effort to learn about the issues facing businesses and community, and the community in the city of Beaumont. We'll take a staff report, please.
Thank you, sir. Chairman and Commission, the item before you tonight is a request to put forth to City Council a number of amendments to the municipal code. As the chairman said, these amendments or proposed amendments have come out of months of talks with the Economic Development Committee, downtown business meetings, and staff talking internally about ways that we can help businesses navigate and overcome the barriers of entry on various levels into doing business with the city of Beaumont. So first, as a matter of housekeeping, I'm not sure which, I'm going to go with what's on the agenda here because I had a couple different versions of this. I want to make sure I'm using the right one. So there are a number of attachments. A couple have been provided to you on the dais as well as been made available to the public here in the council chambers. We're putting forth this evening for discussion a number of things, like I said. So we're going to start with a revision to the administrative plot plan process. We're requesting some modifications to the footnotes in table 1719-1. And we're proposing to add some uses into the permitted use table, specifically for downtown in 1719-1, as well as then in the larger citywide zoning allowances. So those would be breweries, distilleries, and other types of alcoholic beverage production, either with or without on-site sales, tasting, and consumption. And then staff is also proposing allowing public parking lots and structures in the downtown area because surprisingly, that's not listed in the zoning table. We thought we should add that in there. Two additionally proposed amendments, which we'll discuss separately, are a change in self-storage facilities in the urban village zone from not permitted to conditionally permitted. And then an option for addition of a determination of use option, and we'll get into that a little bit more as well. So first, I want to talk about the proposed changes that have come specifically out of the Economic Development Committee meeting and the downtown business meetings. So currently, the administrative plot plan process, which is essentially known as the new business application packet, is about 26 pages. And it's somewhat intimidating, overwhelming, has a lot of forms. It's like your kids' school forms where you have to fill out the same information over and over and over on a bunch of different items. It's a lot like that. So we've heard about it for a number of years, and after participating in the Economic Development Committee meetings for several months and having 3 of the downtown business meetings, that continually rises to the top of from both landlords and occupants or potential business owners about how cumbersome that new business application packet is. So staff has worked internally to get that package down from about 26 pages to about 6 pages and still be able to get the relevant information that we need for from the business owners. Additionally, some of the forms that were required previously, the police department, like the alarm permit form and such, those are now actually done just all online. And so that has been taken out of the packet as well. But in addition to weeding the paper packet down, we also wanted to look at the process. And so any type of business going into any existing structure or new structure had the same requirements. So if you're a retail business owner going into a storefront that previously had a retail business in it, you still had to do that 26-page application, as if you were a brand new business going into a brand new building we had no information on. If you were a business owner and you were selling your business to someone else and that person buying the business, even if it was the same business name and the same location and nothing was changing, guess what? Also had to fill out that 26-page packet again. And so, again, you can imagine how many times we heard about this. And with that packet is also associated a fee, about $518 and some change. So, we realize that for the amount of time and the amount of work that goes into something like that, it really needs to be for businesses that first-time occupants, or if we're having a significant change in what's taking place in a structure. So that leads me to the proposed language, the first change in the administrative section. So this is under administrative plot plan application in chapter 17.02. And the red line version you have there as well as in the staff report. And so the first change says an occupancy or assumption of a structure where building occupancy classification will change from the previously established or permitted use. And so that would say we're going from retail to restaurant, right? Or we're going from retail to an assembly type use, right? That's going to trigger some different changes where building and fire are going to want to get in and look at it. We're going to have to do some inspections. We're going to have to make sure there's proper entry and exit, and there are different considerations given to something like that versus a standard retail to retail that's already occupying the space. So we continue that with what's already in the code: occupancy or assumption of an existing use or business which conforms to the zoning ordinance. And we've added, and doesn't change building occupancy classification, does not require an administrative plot plan, but does require an updated business license. So we still want the information. We still want to know that there's a new business in there, or that there's a new owner of a business that's occupying there. But just come in and fill out the business license, and we'll get that updated in the system. You pay your new business license fee or whatever it is, and we can append the file that we have as far as that goes. Planning, building, fire, all of those, public works also, everybody has to sign off on the business license still. So there will be eyes on each of these applications, even if they're not doing the entire packet. When the business license comes around, we do a zoning check through planning, building and safety looks at it, and they check to make sure that permits are on file for, whatever is needed. Public Works looks at it for their various items, and fire the same thing. So they'll be able to look at the building and look at the type of use and know if there's something that they need to go in and look, or if there's any concerns.
So if they do have a concern, are they able to reach out to the applicant, request new information, or does it trigger a different process they'd have to go through?
No, we can reach out and have some information. There are some things coming down the road, which again, like I said, I'll talk about later, but that will help this long-term, and meaning in the next year or so. But we always have the ability to go out and inspect, to request additional information. If we see something that doesn't quite work, then staff always has the ability to go back and remedy the situation prior to signing off on any type of permit or use allowance.
So Public Works can make sure they get their industrial codes on there.
Right, yeah. And so shockingly right now, our form had it's like a 7 or 8 page wastewater form, no industrial codes. And so part of the change is we're updating these forms so we can have the proper codes as necessary put in on the, I forgot what the SB code, the Senate bill was that requires that, but to get that form in there, and then we can go through the process. If there is an industrial code, we need to fill out the wastewater form. But that wastewater form, which I know Anthony is intimately familiar with, you know, everybody doesn't need to fill that out, you know.
Right.
So anyway, that's the purpose behind this initial change. As we work down through that on the red lines, you can see there are a couple of items that we took out, and then we moved further down into a different process. And that includes model homes and then temporary uses. So what we've done is we've instead of requiring those to be done under an administrative plot plan, which, as I said, is intended specifically really for new businesses that are going to occupy a structure, we've moved the model home complexes and temporary real estate offices, et cetera, down to under a minor plot plan. And that's a typical process that we have written into most of our specific plans. So when a builder wants to come in and put up a model home complex, in almost every case, we have a minor plot plan requirement. Not something full-blown, permanent that needs to come to commission, but it is part of the larger development. And at some point, we know, model home complex typically serve as the models and the sales office. And then when everything else is sold, they're converted into the permanent residences that become part of the overall development. So the administrative plot plan is not necessarily appropriate for that. And we have actually not really utilized that process. Additionally, temporary offices that would be used to operate a business while a site's under construction, or something like that would be maybe a longer term, but again, not permanent use, would be more appropriate under a minor plot plan, where staff could apply some conditions of approval and put some time constraints on those. If that makes sense. And then, again, an administrative plot plan, not the appropriate tool for that type of use.
It'd be if someone has a sales trailer versus a sales off,
Exactly, yeah. If it's not a model home complex, but we have a sales trailer, we don't want the sales trailer to be there permanently, but we understand the need to continue operations while you're rehabbing a site or making improvements to a site, so that ultimately we have, a permanent structure that looks nice and we can get that sales trailer off the lot, yeah. So, any questions on that? Any additional or any considerations?
I think the minor plot plan update's fairly typical for other jurisdictions as well, so.
Yeah, both Carol and I have come from cities where, if it's an existing structure and, it's non-problematic for all intents and purposes and it meets zoning code requirements, then, you get your sign off on business license and go on your way, so. Okay. All right, so then the other section, the other change that would take place in the administration portion of the code is related to, again, it's community development director duties and responsibilities, but essentially it would be either myself or the planning manager, planning director who could make the call. Right now, the code has permitted uses, right? So you're familiar with the permitted use table that's in the code, both for downtown and citywide. Right now, it's very much black and white. So it's either listed or it isn't. And there's no mechanism for any determination of similar use to take place. So TerraGen, the project that we just extended earlier, is a perfect example of that. So there was no battery energy storage or alternative energy use listed in the code. Even though staff knew it's a quasi-public utility, it's very compatible with other or similar to other uses that were listed under the public utilities section, but because it was not specifically listed, we actually had to go amend the code at City Council to include battery energy storage and other types of alternative energy uses, put it in the code, and then we could bring the item back before Planning Commission to consider, right? Staff was frustrated by that. The applicant was frustrated by that. Council was frustrated by that because it really added a significant amount of time to the review process for that project, right? So what we're proposing here, we have pulled from what other cities have done, and of course run it through legal counsel as all of these things have been, just for the record. But we are proposing the language that says the community development director, upon written request or upon our own initiative, when a use is not specifically listed as a permitted use or a conditional permitted use under a particular zone, and when the use that's proposed or classification requested shall determine whether the use is sufficiently similar to a use listed in the particular zone. So basically, we're asking to put a section into the code that allows us to make a determination of use. For us to look at something and say, you know what, this is really similar to XYZ, which is also allowed in this zone, or is allowed subject to a conditional use permit. With that, we have to make the findings that are included, which says the proposed use would meet the objectives of the zone. The proposed use and its operation are compatible with the uses permitted in the zone, and the proposed use is similar to one or more uses in the zone. And then if we make those determinations, then staff is required to then notify both the Planning Commission and the City Council that a determination has been made in what that was.
And that determination will be part of the staff report as presented when the project comes forward?
Right, it would be if it was something that required Planning Commission or council approval. If it was something that was gonna occupy an existing structure, then it was something we would just bring back as an informational item to let the commission know that a determination was made for.
Okay.
Right.
Okay, got it. So, okay, so there is reporting back on whether or not we need it. And then to your discretion or your designee's discretion, if enough of these are coming up, then maybe we need to actually amend the code.
Right.
To add it, okay.
Right, yeah, that's, that would be another, it'd be an underlying benefit would be, it gives us the ability to track the requests. And I will say, we don't get many, I think maybe we've had a couple. And Terrigen is the most prominent one that I can think of that we've had to deal with in the last couple of years.
It's come up a number of times.
For you coming up.
So, we've got one.
Yeah, it's come up a number of times where we've had have to have the hearing on amending the code, and then the next meeting, we have to have the meeting on actually approving the project. So I think having a mechanism in there to determine similar uses is probably beneficial.
In your example of Terrigen, if the wording was like this proposed item F or section F, would that, because you said there was similar, that the project is similar enough, so that would have qualified
Absolutely.
for that? Okay.
Yeah, and again, talking with the city attorney about this particular code section, that's the example that he came to as well, because we had a lot of conversation about this. I'm like, it fits right in there. It goes with the other, the other utilities that are listed and public or quasi-public uses and whatnot. But because it wasn't specifically identified, and because we didn't have the mechanism, we had to go through the whole process, which was the right thing to do. Just, it delays everything.
I'd say.
What would happen in the very remote chance that we didn't agree with your interpretation or your determination?
My goal is to not have that happen, just for the record. So that's something we can talk about now. If we need to add something in there that the determination comes before final approval is issued, then that's something that we can add in and take forth. In my conversations with there's some nuances with this from a legal standpoint, and so I'll tell you, that's why the verbiage is how it is. If you want that consideration to come back, we can more than happy to run that through and vet it and take the recommendation. This initially started out as having either commission or council make the determination, but that it was something There's something that the Legal Beagles didn't like about that in the way that it was done. So then we went to other cities and other codes to see what they did, and this is how.
So, yeah, I was gonna ask the same question, because I think you have two different tracks for sure. You've got one where like the energy storage is coming forward with a new project. It can be reported to the commission at the time of the staff report. And I suppose a determination here can be like, no, we don't agree, it needs to go back. That's pretty clear and easy to do and still within the framework of what is written here. I think the other one is like, say, Ziggy's Coffee comes around, they build, and then somebody comes by and they say they want to have drive-through, I don't know, service or something weird. You know, I don't have a good example. They're
Right.
all going to be
I
terrible.
know what you're saying, though. Yeah, I
But, you
understand.
know, at some point, you know, if that's administrative, you know, they've already been given permission to open and operate their business. You know, it seems harsh to come back and, you know, claw
Say
that
you
back
can't,
away.
right.
Right.
Yeah, no, my thoughts on that were just for future planning commissioners and future city staff, just that there might be a mechanism where the people in these chairs could retain the say on, I guess.
Yeah, there's that aspect as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah, and
all.
I'll tell you from staff standpoint, we love to punt any decision we can to you guys. So, not that we don't want to make decisions, but we do that all day long on a bunch of other items. So, you know, typically if it's something that we're like, hey, yeah, conditional use permit it, send it on to, you'll see as we get through this, how much more we're
Conditionally approving?
Yeah, conditionally approving up to you guys. I agree with your concerns and I understand them. So, what I can do is note this. What do we do about existing uses? What if a determination is not agreed upon by the planning commission? And see what information I bring back, and I can report that back in the council item, and then council can ultimately, you know, they have to ultimately agree with all this anyway. And then we can come back and report to you guys what council decided.
I wonder, I mean, I've done this in other jurisdictions, I know we don't require preliminary review, but as you can tell in most of the staff reports tonight, I mean, the applicants are taking advantage of that, is if there is a use that's proposing a determination, is maybe doing a work study with the planning commission under the preliminary review, so that way, at least, you know, we'd kind of get a feel for what the planning commission's, you know, what they're leaning towards. And then the applicant isn't, you know, doing the full entitlements and coming forward to a hearing and determining that, you know, that there's not compliance.
I think that's a good idea.
Okay.
I think that's a good idea.
So I can, I will, anytime something goes from here to council, we summarize and then, you know, carry that information forward to council. So, I will both summarize and put this information in there as options, and then I'll run it through legal counsel as well, and just make sure that everything would pass, either one or both would pass the, what they would be looking for. But whatever they decide, we'll make sure that council understands the discussion that took place regarding this,
Okay.
this particular issue.
Yeah, my follow-up was gonna be is the business license process, if someone does occupy, you know, if we met every 2 weeks, it'd probably be easy enough to bring something up and be like, hey, this is coming up, and we're gonna see an issue. But if we're meeting once a month or less, or
Right.
having a meeting specifically to ask that question, that could be, you know, cause unnecessary delay.
Yeah.
No, I like the idea of the pre-application meetings, you know, kind of driving that and, you know, having a quick summary here, if and when those cases do arise.
And it was very effective, like I said, because at least the applicant would have an idea and not do a full-blown entitlement. And, you know, because when you get to a public hearing, I mean, it's the 11th hour, and so I know it can be frustrating.
No, I think that's a real good idea.
Yeah, the idea is to obviously not create more delay. We're trying
Right.
to eliminate
To streamline
delays.
it,
So,
exactly.
Yeah, so, okay.
Hopefully business owners take more and more advantage of it. I'm guessing it's, you know, the same, you know, submit this, you get 2 weeks, it's free. We'll have all the responses for you from other departments, kind of a process, or?
Yeah, I mean, the preliminary review, the formal application is $908 and,
$907.92.
Oh, I was thinking like a pre-app review if
Yeah.
that was offered or something on there.
It is,
Okay.
and so that's the cost.
yeah, that would be
Okay.
for a full, we typically don't see that for business license or administrative approvals, but that would be for like a project that would typically
Right.
come here. For a business license, those would go to DRC. So the administrative plot plan and so we have a couple weeks on that, but you're right. If we're meeting every 2 weeks as opposed to once a month, it's a little easier for us to inform you guys and bring the information forward rather than waiting 4 weeks in between or sometimes longer.
Right. Not that I'm suggesting we have meetings every 2 weeks to have, one question asked, but
Yeah, it ebbs and flows around here. Sometimes it's every 2 weeks, sometimes it's every 2 months.
right.
So, okay, I'm clear on the concerns
Okay.
and whatnot there. All right. So that completes the requested changes for the administration section. So on to table 1703-3, which is the zoning map. Well, it's the section of zoning map and zone districts. What we're proposing is addition of uses and then change to a couple of uses. So the table you have up there is not for this one, the updated table, that's specific to the downtown. So this one is included as attachment B in your staff report, but I can walk you through the items. So the first requested change is to add, as referenced earlier, brewery or distillery, and a brewery, distillery, or other alcoholic beverage production with on-site tasting and consumption. And those would all be subject to a conditional use permit and in the commercial zones. So we would add it to neighborhood commercial, community commercial, manufacturing, and urban village. And the reason for the CUP is twofold, really. One, we deal with ABC, alcoholic beverage control on anything that deals with alcohol. They have to be properly licensed. In many cases, we have to make the findings of public convenience and necessity. We're required to report to the ABC that all of these findings were made, that commission approved it and whatnot. The other reason is, for just like anything else that's conditionally permitted, was we need to be able to look at it and make sure it's an appropriate location, that operationally it's not going to have an impact on a neighborhood. Give the commission opportunity to look at staff's conditions and, is there anything that needs to be revised, adjusted, amended, and have that final say on the approval. So, any questions on those uses?
Just kind of a high level, if it's the commercial zone, do we want to allow for a use that doesn't generate revenue?
Yeah, I think there's, yes, I think that the distillery, brewery, I don't want to say it's a fad because I think it's really something that's here to stay. It continues to move out this way. We've seen it, and I think the idea is to provide an opportunity if there were businesses like that looking here, the opportunity would be there for them to take hold.
Yeah, and I like it when you have the tasting room because you have sales that are generating direct
Right.
revenue for the city. I'm just worried if someone's coming in and said, oh, I'm a wholesaler, now they're
Right.
taking up leasable commercial area and, there's not a sales tax benefit necessarily to the city as a result of it.
Agreed. And I think staff would like to encourage them to go to the manufacturing zone. If
Yeah.
that were the case, we would, or encourage them to add a tasting room, And if
Right.
we would like to then not allow them without in the 2 commercial zones, then we can carry that recommendation forward as well.
I mean, that was my initial thought on that.
Okay.
I don't know how the rest of the commission feels.
So the first line, which is brewery or distillery, so just allow it conditionally in either manufacturing or urban village?
Maybe just manufacturing.
Manufacturing, okay.
That makes sense, Chairman.
Yeah.
So we'll leave them as N, instead of C, we will put N in all the other zones, residential
Right.
as well, I just figured that was a given.
Right.
But we will reflect that, and then,
I don't know, it's kind of fun to have a, distillery in your community center, right?
I'll let council
Actually,
know that
HOA
was your,
meetings with that.
I'll let council know Commissioner Smith would like a brewery in the community center. Okay.
Yeah, I think hopefully at that point, if you say, it's like, yeah, you can, but you have to open up a tasting room, it'll be real quick to
Right.
be, yeah, we'll do that.
Yeah.
Because I think you're right. I think it's a trend. People travel for them. It's kind of becoming more of an experience and probably a draw into some of the commercial centers that are a little bit, with the lack of retail. It's
Right. I agree.
Yeah.
I was thinking of Hangar 24 in Redlands, the huge tasting area, and they also distill there and brew there. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. The other change in, I hope you have the, or did I miss it? Oh, there it is. Whew. Okay, the other change is in the, under the manufacturing and industrial gray headline there. And it relates to mini storage, mini warehouse, self-storage, or public storage. Right now, these uses are only permitted in the manufacturing zone. And staff is proposing that we allow these uses as conditionally permitted in the urban village zone. We have one existing, prior to changing the zoning, we had an existing self-storage facility in the urban village zone. When we changed this to non-permitted, it then created a non-conforming use for that currently operating business. So in hindsight, seeing as how it's kind of the only thing out there, we thought it might be ideal to go ahead and change that to at least conditionally permitted. That would then allow them to do some upgrades to the site. They have some opportunity to expand what's existing there already, which they currently cannot do as a non-conforming use. Also out in that area, there are some parcels that we feel fit the intent of the storage ordinance, which we adopted, including oddly shaped parcels that are not necessarily usable for any other real viable type commercial or industrial development. And so that would allow some opportunity for uses to take place out there, which, brings little by little infrastructure and improvements to those areas.
So I get it. I get it. So the urban village is essentially everything between the 60 and the creek up on the bluff, including all the existing businesses on Western Knolls.
Yes, yeah. It's Western Knolls, north up, and then from Potrero over to,
So that's kind of my question is, I get it. But is there a way to narrow that even a little bit more where we could say, conditionally approved in the urban village, fronting Western Knolls and east of Potrero or something, to kind of keep it in that area so we don't have someone that's coming by for the larger project at some point that's going to put RV storage on the rest of it?
yeah. So when we wrote the storage ordinance, we specifically put in there parcels not viable for other commercial industrial use, like due to size or shape or configuration.
Okay.
And so that was the intent of that, was to keep the perfectly rectangular, non-constrained sites from going to storage, right? Staff understands storage is a need that the community has, and we hear that a lot. There's not enough storage, or not enough RV storage, or it's really expensive, or we're having to go to Calamasa or Yucaipa or, other places. But we also understand from an economic development standpoint, it's not a high jobs use, it's not a revenue generating use. It's really just the basic improvement to land essentially is what we get. So walking that fine line of, how to balance it, again, I'm open to, we kind of knew this one would generate some, I anticipate as it moves down the process, it's going to generate some additional discussion. We may be able to footnote it to properties fronting along Western Knolls, if that's something that commission would like to see, or if this is something that you would not recommend moving forward, then I can take that as well. Each of these items are listed individually, so you have that option when it comes time to move on the recommendations, that you can make a decision on each one specifically. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe a footnote might be the way to handle that, because like I said, it's out there. There's parcels, especially as you get to the east part of Western Knolls. That's an odd, funky shape. That's not going to really work. But I think once you get behind those up to, just that center, I think there's an opportunity to develop something, really kind of nice there.
Or could it be a footnote that says only expansion of a existing facility?
Yeah, I had that thought as well as a potential option.
So we actually, when I worked city attorney on that, we run into an issue with that because it's a non-conforming use.
Okay.
And so then if we're setting a precedent. So if we footnote this, we're essentially contradicting the code, first of all, with the intent of what non-conforming use is, but we also open ourselves up to having to caveat in some capacity, whether arbitrary and subjective or objectively, doing that for other non-conforming uses, allowing the expansion of or, right? Yeah. So, because we do have a very specific non-conforming use section of the municipal code.
Well, I'm glad we have the storage ordinance.
We do. And I think we've probably been talking about this since July. So this is between us and legal and all the other people we've talked to. This is if we're going to do something, not saying we have to, but if we were going to propose making a change that would allow expansion or occupancy or development of a storage facility in that zone, this is probably the most controlled way that we could do it.
But even if we did switch it to conditionally approved with a footnote, then we wouldn't have any of the issues with, non-compliance
Correct.
and
Yeah.
non-conformance or.
Yeah, and it still has to meet the storage ordinance regardless. So
Right.
even without the footnote or with the footnote, it would be the footnote and still meeting the storage ordinance, just like our project tonight that was a permitted use still had to meet those requirements.
Or I wonder if that like an overlay in the overlay.
Well, we changed it to a zone, so now it's not an overlay,
Oh, okay. So,
we could.
I mean, that,
Well, but I mean, if it's clean enough, maybe that's, the question to ask as part of moving forward. You'll report this discussion to council as part of it. That if we are able to say that, yeah, we'll conditionally allow it within the zone, but with the footnote that restricts it to, a certain footprint where those uses already exist. That might be a clean way to go about it.
Yeah, I like that.
Because then we don't get into expansion only, or, if it have it non-conforming, returns the property back to a conforming use on there, allows for,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, and there's always, anytime you change a zone, it always unintended consequence, you create some types of non-conforming uses and whatnot. So we understand that to be the case, and again, this, we carry it forward, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, so.
Any other comments on that item? I mean, is there disagreements? Am I kind of alone on that, or is it?
I was looking where you were pointing to here, and it makes sense so far. So,
Okay, yeah, and again, we can consider this item individually when it comes time, so. All right, so moving on now to proposed changes to the downtown zone districts. And again, the table very similar to what we have, what we're looking at here. And I did update the table that you have there. There's some updated language that
Bless you.
that came out after the agenda was published, just to tidy up the footnotes a bit. So first, again, we're adding the brewery or distillery and the brewery and distillery with on-site sales, tasting, or consumption. So these are being proposed in all areas of the downtown.
Well, before you go on there, just so I can refresh for myself, the acronyms. DMU is
Oh,
downtown mixed use.
downtown mixed use,
Generally
Beaumont
the-
mixed use.
Generally the 6th Street corridor between Palm and the freeway.
Right, Sixth Street mixed use, Sixth Street mixed use with the residential allowance, local commercial, and then, it shouldn't be in DMF, which is the downtown multifamily.
Okay,
So that will have to be
non-permitted.
not permitted, yeah.
And the 6th Street mixed use, essentially Palm to Highland Springs.
Yeah, it runs, it's Sixth Street mixed use is like Palm, and then somewhere around Xenia, maybe we start to see the local commercial come in, and the local commercial then is the very last part, like Stater Brothers, basically at the Highland Springs down there.
All right, sorry, thank you.
No, that's okay, yes. I forget, not everybody stares at this all day like we do, so. So I guess the same question would be asked, do we want to allow these uses subject to, tasting and consumption or not?
So again, here, my take on it, and I'll, see what the commission thinks, that in the downtown and Beaumont Avenue, that we should be encouraging it as a storefront. That we would want it to be with tasting only. So I would say non-permitted for just the brewing aspect of it. I think when you get into the 6th Street corridor, it's a little bit different. You don't have the same walkability and the same downtown feel you're trying to create. I think that might be more acceptable in those areas where I could see that being conditionally approved. But, other commissioners.
Seems like as you move east on 6th Street, towards the Stater Brothers, that so far as conditional for a brewery or distillery. It's just, I can't imagine one there, but there is some open space there. I think on the south side, like where the Applebee's, is and that sort of thing. So I can see that. It just seemed like, sometimes these are larger. Got to get a little creative then with the space, I think that.
Yeah, from a use standpoint and size and scale, I think local commercial would make the most sense. I could also see carrying the previous discussion through on this one and letting those just go in manufacturing. Right?
Yeah,
So-
but I have a feeling manufacturing is going to get gobbled up by a lot of other larger type structures. And having something that's on that corridor, for example, if you looked at the swap meet lot, maybe it's that developed, maybe there is a brewery or distillery component that's closer to the freeway that's out of the way that doesn't have a sales front to it. I could see allowing it in those areas, but any of the other zones, local commercial, BMU, DMU, that would need to have a retail component as part of it. Still allow it for the use, but have a storefront.
Like the example you just gave, we would want a tasting or a sales component there. Like, for instance, Xenia and the swap meet location.
That's what we're talking about. Is
Right.
like, where do we want to have a tasting? Because if somebody, let's say they're successful enough where they open up a tasting room on Beaumont Avenue, but they need a larger facility to brew, is something that's up against the freeway an appropriate area if they don't have a tasting component to it. Like, I could see potentially that being allowed, but within the kind of the walkable zones we're trying to create in the shopping
scales,
centers,
yeah.
Okay.
those would need to have some kind of tasting and retail component to it.
Right. Okay.
Works. Any other comments? Anybody else want to weigh in on that one? No? Okay. All right. I'm clear on that. All right. So, additionally, as shown in the staff report there, staff is requesting adding public parking lots as a permitted use and again, in all zones in downtown.
Permitted or conditionally permitted?
Permitted, and those would be, permitted.
Permitted.
Yeah. So,
So vacant parcels, they could come with an application, just pave it, turn it into a public lot.
right.
And it would have to be a public lot.
It would have to be a public,
Okay.
a public lot. And so, I guess there's a question, does that make sense? Do we want to caveat that anyhow, or, okay,
Yeah, and that's, boy, jumping in here. I kind of feel that there's a parking lot with a chain in Redlands that would be quite handy, but it is a private parking lot and, you know, it's kind of zoned off. You know, I hate to have somebody put in, here's my parking lot, and now we're going to require you to start paying, you know, a certain fee for it. And we just see these, you know, kind of paid parking lots. I think we're a long ways out from having that be the case. You know, but I'd rather see some other type of use on it than just that. So, I mean, if it's for public benefit, maybe.
So
There's not a-
public
there's not a
parking
revenue
lots or
generation aspect.
structures with no fee. Are we footnoting this one? Is that
I don't
where
know.
we're going with this, with no fee or?
I'm literally just coming up with spitballing right now, so I don't have a full thought yet.
Public parking lot, is that operated by the city, owned by the city?
It could be, or it could be a business that has an adjacent lot that also makes it available for public parking for walkability purposes, right? So for background on this, the conversation has a lot been at EDC in the downtown meetings regarding, you know, parking, right? Most of the sites, the buildings don't have enough parking to accommodate what the code requires. That's going to be another round of stuff that comes to you guys at another point in time to address that. But in the meantime, city staff and the businesses have all been, you know, we need public parking, we need parking lots, we need places where people can park and walk and, you know, whatnot. And so we need to add it into the code. And so, you know, from a staff standpoint, I understand the concerns of, you know, is it a city operated parking lot? Sure. Could it be a privately owned, you know, lot that someone makes available for public parking, whether it's, you know, during the business day or after hours? If it's a situation, say a business has a lot, they, you know, they're only open till 5, but maybe the restaurant next to them is open until 10 or 11 and they're going to make it available. You know, we're careful not to infringe too much on a business's ability, right, to make money or to use their property how they see fit within reason or within the parameters of the code. So when I looked at it as a parking, it could be a parking lot or structure regardless of whether it's a city operated or whether it's someone who chose to establish that as a permitted use. Now, will we get a proliferation of parking lots? You know,
Probably not.
to be determined.
Yeah. Yeah, it's because if it was a parking lot that was on the property of the business, then they could be dedicated for that business potentially. It wouldn't be public. But if there's a business that doesn't have room and buys a property next door, you know, is it fair to put a condition on them that says, no, you can only do that if it's open for the public and everybody else? It's
Right. Well, and because that de-incentivizes or disincentivizes, you
Right.
know, someone wanting to,
Right.
from a potentially, you know, beneficial situation for everybody, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I know you have thoughts on parking. It's the one area where maybe we don't see eye to eye. Because I'm always like,
Okay, so I see definitely the need, right, for parking. I don't think we could, well, personally, I wouldn't, if I'm making space for my establishment or my business. And I don't want to sound greedy or anything, but I would want my patrons, my customers to utilize it and just be used for me because one, we carry insurances on it, we pave it, stripe in it, and then if they can't access, if my customers can't access it, then that creates a problem. So but there is a need for it. So I mean, if I guess 2 or 3 businesses agree upon, or maybe if it's something that the city helps a business owner to, let's say, pave or upkeep or something where that it could be public, but not the sole business owner taking on all the requirement of the maintenance of it, I could see something like that. But again, personally, if I'm building a parking lot, I'm kind of wanting my customers to use it.
Which makes sense.
makes sense, right?
Yeah. So I mean, within the downtown zone and within the Beaumont Avenue zone, I think you'd probably have to knock buildings down in order to just convert to a parking lot. I'm not sure that there's a lot of people that would
Right.
do that. You know, unless,
There's a couple of vacant lots down there that I've noticed that are just,
there's a couple.
that you could definitely use, I mean, I could see if we create the downtown as we're wanting to, I could see there's gonna be a definite need for it. So I could see that's why we should permit it so that somebody could come and build a structure. But again, I think if it's gonna be public, then that's something that maybe the city and the owner would have to work on together. Unless it becomes a private parking lot where you charge a fee to utilize that parking for whatever hours or whatnot. Or
Right,
maybe
and-
public, I think Relish has it after a certain amount of time, it becomes public or something along the lines of that.
Yeah, and this discussion right now, that's way deeper than what we get into at this point, right? So right now, we're just saying, should we allow them? Should we conditionally permit them? You know, right, because it's not a permitted use in the code right now. But on further down, that would become part of maybe the incentive program discussion for downtown, or, you know, something along those lines, is when you get into the mechanics of how does this work, right?
So if a business owner found a vacant lot right now, they need the parking, they couldn't build a parking lot,
Right.
right? Okay.
I mean, yeah, because we don't have a determination mechanism and we don't have a permitted use. So this goes back to the discussion we had earlier with adding that determination clause in, right? Is there anything in there that we could determine this would be similar to? Probably not in the downtown. So adding this in as a use then would be,
And for a practical purpose, if a business owner bought an adjacent parcel and wanted to put a parking lot on it, how's it different than if those parcels were combined?
right.
You know, then the parking wouldn't be an issue and
Right.
it'd be allowed as part of the business use.
And that's what we would require during the planning process. Now, if they were proposing parking on an adjacent parcel, we would have them either do like a parcel merger, or we would have to somehow, we've done before in the downtown, like a shared parking agreement when there's been two different parcels where there's something actually recorded that says this parcel can be used for parking for this development.
And that's actually codified
Yeah.
in the parking chapter of the municipal code.
Would
Are
it make?
you
oh,
more, oh no, go ahead.
I was gonna say, would it make more sense to change it from the proposal is permitted to conditional? That way it has to, you know, at least come to us first.
And what about if we just change the public? I mean, parking lot structures, I mean, if a business needs one, and then, but I guess if we just take the public aspect away from that, does that make sense, or?
No, because I think then business is already required to have parking. So that's just a given with any development. And we require it as it stands right now to be on-site parking. So we don't have a provision for off-site parking, which means, say you have your business on, you know, the south side of Sixth Street and there's a vacant lot on the north side of Sixth Street. You can't build your business on the Sixth, but on the south side and then park it on the north side. We don't have a mechanism in the code to allow that to happen. So this would essentially help alleviate that. If we had public parking, then there would be an opportunity to let that happen. Would it be preferred to have?
Centralized city-owned
Right,
public
yeah,
parking.
that's where I was getting, I was trying to
Yeah.
figure out how to say, I'm like, city-sponsored parking, but that
Right.
wasn't the right word.
Yeah, I think this is parking for the public.
It is parking for the like our
Yeah.
PD parking lot.
Yeah. I think we should, I mean, I think we can, it's something that, may not happen for a while, but I think we should put into we should approve, is my opinion.
Would it potentially be a variance? You know, because what is it? Was it here or it was somewhere where there was like Amazon had to get a parking lot across the street and needed a variance.
I think that was like Rudolph Foods, and that was
Yeah.
a long time ago. Yeah. I think we did do a separate, I'd have to look back at how we did that. It may have been a plot, we may have done a plot plan for parking, but that's manufacturing zone, so it's a little different,
right.
right? So parking at the time was allowed, in that zone, but yeah, I believe that was for the Rudolph Foods project, or Rudolph Foods operation, because they were having a big problem with overflow.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it was a long time
it was
ago.
a lot, it was like that was like 2018, I think.
Yeah.
So instead of public parking,
Or I think, what about if we just put it as conditional so that we could, just in case, I don't know, maybe it just doesn't fit what we're trying to do in the downtown, and, you know, there is somebody that's willing to, maybe wanting to knock it down and just put in a big giant parking lot, and then it just throws the downtown vibe that we're wanting to do. Maybe we could, try to move them around somewhere where it's
I think
best.
that makes sense. I think we're all agreeing on we're all in agreement on what the intent is and what we want to see and how we want to have it and what the considerations are, but
yeah, and it is a fine line with
yeah,
finding the right,
with that balance.
yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so I will include the recommendation on that as conditionally permitted in the DMU, BMU, SSMUs, LC, but I'm gonna make it not permitted in the downtown multifamily zone again.
Yeah.
Not appropriate.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Does that make sense, everybody?
Okay. And then, last couple changes on this are, commercial pet grooming and tattoo and body piercing. And these uses both pertain to just downtown mixed use and Beaumont mixed use. Commercial pet grooming is allowed in the downtown mixed use, but for some reason not in the Beaumont mixed use. And, both of those areas are fairly similar in general. So we do on occasion get a request for pet grooming businesses, and we think it's appropriate to go ahead and allow it as a permitted use in the Beaumont mixed use zone. And then tattoo and body piercing, downtown mixed use and Beaumont mixed use as conditionally permitted instead of not permitted. And same thing for billiard and pool halls and dance studios. Those are conditionally permitted right now in the DMU and in the SSMU, but for some reason not in the Beaumont mixed use area. So for billiards and pool halls and dance studios, we think conditionally permitted is an appropriate opportunity. So we can look at it, you guys can look at it and, you know, give it a thumbs up or thumbs down. Tattoo and body piercing, again, we have those businesses existing already in both of those zones. We don't have a proliferation and we don't get a ton of requests, but again, it's not uncommon to see those types of uses in a downtown zone. I'm open for questions or comments on that as well.
Is there any, I see, it's all shooting ranges on here. Is there any areas in the city where outdoor shooting ranges would be considered?
I don't know. Oh, you have let me pull up the code that doesn't have our changes on it. Offhand, I don't know that outdoor is allowed anywhere. And we don't really have any, like the outdoor open space here that we have is mostly the county area, believe it or not. On the north end, our sphere on the north basically is, Sunny Cow Egg Ranch and the high school. Otherwise it's down, along Brookside. Anything up above that is Cherry Valley. And then on the way south end, our boundary jogs right along where like Amazon and Wolverine are, where the wastewater plant is. Much outside of that boundary, you're in the county area.
Yeah.
So offhand, I don't even think it's listed in.
Right, and then most of the big bulge at the bottom of the city was the Potrero unit of San Jacinto Conservation Area.
Conservation, right,
Yeah.
Okay.
yeah.
Reason I mentioned it, there's a uptick right now in the interest of youth skeet and trap shooting for high school teams and that sort of thing, and seeing if there's an opportunity in the city to have that. But yeah.
And then,
The only thing I would, and I guess maybe it's, I don't know. If we're trying to create walkable downtown dining, this kind of stuff, people are walking dogs back and forth, but at the same time, people are walking dogs in the street. So is it really that big of a deal if they're going to get them groomed versus just out for a walk? Probably not.
yeah, I mean, I consider it just like any other service business, like we go get our haircut.
Yeah.
Your dog needs a haircut. I mean, it's kind of, I consider it all in that sort of personal service type environment, or just like another retail establishment where
Yeah.
people go in, they come out, it would obviously not, it does not include like kennel services or anything like that where you've got outside
It'd be grooming and-
operations. It's
yeah.
grooming, it's in,
You're 20 minutes in and out. And,
yeah, or you drop your dog off and come get them later or whatever, like,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. Any other comments on those sections? All right.
Okay. And then lastly, we are at the footnotes for the downtown table. So there's some history that goes along with these recommendations as well. The main footnotes on these, you can see, essentially limits uses, right? It limits a use by square footage. And the footnotes they carry through the table to a wide variety of uses, including markets and grocery and retail and all that. So the idea behind this, and this came into play when we updated the general plan, the idea was to make sure that the size and scale of what's happening in downtown is what we want. That we don't get a Walmart in downtown. We know that's not going to happen anyway, right? We've already got a Walmart, but second of all, there's not enough land that's really going to facilitate in the core of downtown something very large scale like that coming in. What we have found is a number of businesses that would like to expand, but can't because they're capped by a certain square footage. And so again, unintended consequence, 5,000 feet, that's a hard number. But what if they need 5,200 or 5,500, right? So, and we've heard this more than once, which is ultimately how we decided, like, okay, we need to go ahead and propose some mechanism where we're not giving up the opportunity of controlling this, but we need to have a mechanism for consideration. And it needs to be something that's, not necessarily subjective, but that we can apply equitably. And of course, that falls to Planning Commission, right? So what we're proposing is that whether it's footnote number 2, where a use is not allowed on a parcel fronting 6th or Beaumont Avenue, instead of saying, okay, this use is not permitted, let's consider the use and let's see if we can determine if it's compatible, if it would work in the area, in the surrounding area, and then let's present it to Planning Commission, let Planning Commission make that determination. Same thing with the uses on 3 and 7 and 8, where it's limited to 2,500 square feet, 5,000 square feet, 10,000 square feet. On the various uses, maybe 5,500 square feet is going to be okay in a certain area, right? Or maybe that 6,000 square foot gets that market a viable expansion where 5,000 doesn't, right? So again, allowing it through a conditional use permit process, approval by the Planning Commission, allows staff the opportunity to accept the application in a more friendly fashion, instead of saying, well, you can submit it, but we're going to have to deny it or recommend denial because it doesn't meet the standards, right? It lets us take a look at what they're proposing, and it lets us look at the development standards. It lets us look at the surrounding area. It lets us look at what's going on in the downtown to see, is this use going to bring or generate or give us what the vision is for downtown? And it might be, more than 2,500 square feet, or it might be more than 5,000, but it gives us the opportunity to look and see, and it could be something viable. So, then we would present to Planning Commission, and you as the commission would ultimately have the determination on whether or not it's something that would be appropriate in that whatever proposed location or proposed size or scale that, that's being applied for.
Okay. Also gives potentially an opportunity for facade improvements or, so forth, yeah.
Yeah, I'm hoping I'm hoping that ultimately, if this goes through, that it will spur some of that to happen. Like there are some businesses that might like, oh, okay, we can expand or we can do some improvements or, whatnot. And that really benefits, the city as a whole, just when things start to look better.
Yeah.
So.
Okay.
The last one is number 4. I pulled that out separately. And it's related to, primarily, if I'm not mistaken, it's let me find where the 4s are. I think it's liquor stores and, I should have put that in with the footnote. Something along those lines where. Where's my alcohol? You see footnote 4?
It's
On the chart?
The schools. Schools providing instruction, daycare centers and youth centers.
Oh, okay.
From shall to should.
Right. But what are the uses there that should not be located? Wasn't it the,
Yeah, I'm not even sure I see a footnote 4
yeah,
on these.
I'm looking for footnote 4 on this.
It was not proposed on those.
Right. Let me pull this up I'm afraid something happened to my handout and I want to make sure that you guys have the full benefit of knowing what you're being asked to make a recommendation on. Or we have a rogue footnote in here, which might also be the case.
It's a holdover from a previous update where.
Right,
It's
yeah,
cleaned
now
up.
I'm like, well, it's in the downtown, and so,
It
shouldn't be rogue.
Similar to the language that's in the standard zoning table, so it might have carried over from that.
yeah, I don't see it in here, so if it did carry over, our recommendation will then be to strike
it.
it as there are no 4s.
I don't see any.
I don't see any 4s either. That's quite interesting. Oh, no, here we go. It's under the restaurant section, so fast food restaurants without a drive-through have the footnote of 4 and 11.
Oh, there they are.
So do
Okay.
fast food restaurants with a drive-through.
So this would be the similar condition that we just dealt with Ziggy's and Zendejas.
Yes. Yeah, where we're saying it should not be located, but not the shall. So, in most places in the downtown, we don't have drive-throughs allowed really anymore anyway. So
Right.
that's less of an issue, but again, with, what could be considered fast food.
Maybe the drive-through liquor store will start serving again.
I can't believe we still have one.
Right,
Yeah.
yeah.
Anyway, so that's staff's last recommendation. Thank you for your patience in walking through this. I'm happy to answer any other questions or take any other recommendations on anything at this time.
I know we were kind of discussing as it was presented. Are there any other questions for staff at this point? No? All right, we'll open the public hearing at 8:29. Thank you for being so patient. Is there any requests to speak on this item?
I don't have any written comments. Rudy, do we have anyone on the line?
I have no one on the line.
Did you want to speak?
Okay. All right, we'll close the public hearing then at 8:29 and I don't know, call it 8:30.
So if anyone would choose to make a motion on any or all of these. We have each of them listed individually. We can walk through each one again. Staff does have clarification on the uses in both Table 1703-3 and 1719-1 on the breweries and distilleries. And the footnotes, I think we're clear on.
And this is in the form of a recommendation to council.
Yes, you would be forwarding a recommendation of approval or of approval with the modifications presented this evening, or recommendation of denial if that was the recommendation on any or all of these.
So I guess the commission, then, do we want to take them as all at once, or do you want to run through?
I have a motion to approve with all of them with the conditions that we.
And there wasn't any discrepancy that you're, from our discussion up here that would need to be resolved as part of the motion with our recommendations is clear enough?
I'm clear, and
Okay.
again, before I go back and finish up my staff report, I always go back and watch the meeting again because, want to make sure there's no misrepresentation. So I'm clear. If commission is clear, that works for me. Otherwise, I'm happy to take them one at a time.
Okay, so there's a motion on the table?
I'll second.
Okay. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Stevens?
Yes.
Commissioner Bedoya?
Yes.
Vice Chair Kalindras?
Yes.
Chairman Smith?
Yes.
Thank you guys for that. I know it was a lot.
All right, that makes it much easier than voting 10 times.
Right?
All right. So with that, we'll move on to item 4, Deputy City Manager comments.
Okay, I have quite a bit for you guys, so bear with me for a few more minutes here. First thing I want to sort of pull you guys on moving Planning Commission to Wednesdays. So does that pose any heartburn, scheduling issues, anything like that? It would remain the same. So the second Wednesday instead of the second Tuesday of the month. But if before we move any further along, I wanted to gauge commission on how that would work with everyone's schedules.
I have no issue.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't have any issue with that. If that's, more convenient for everybody else, then I know it worked well for me.
Commissioner Bedoya, you said you do have an issue or you don't?
Do not.
Do not, okay.
And this would be effective January?
Yeah, not until January or February. The January, the other commissions, Finance and Audit and EDC, Economic Development Committee, are going to be dark. City Council will be dark the first meeting in January as well. If we don't have any projects that are time sensitive that have to be brought forward to commission will likely be dark in January as well. And so we would not really take effect until February. But again, we work on a time sensitive issue. So if there are projects that come forward, then we would schedule accordingly.
So if a second meeting was necessary, it'd be the 4th Wednesday.
It would be then the fourth Wednesday.
Yeah, I don't have any conflicts with that.
Okay, what Wednesday are we in right now?
This is the fourth or fifth, I don't know, October's long. I know it's the fourth Wednesday, I think. Yeah.
We're starting this January.
Yeah, well, we haven't said anything. I wanted to pull you guys first before we,
I'll have to verify a couple of things. I can tell you offline,
sure,
so I'll just state for the record potential conflict.
okay,
But I just need about 5 minutes to
no
check some
problem.
dates.
You can call or email either Nicole or I, or any one of us can, but yeah,
Okay.
I have no conflicts.
you have no conflicts either, okay. Yeah, and just, again, there's always a reason for why we ask, it's not like, I thought it'd be fun to change it up after decades of Tuesday meetings, right? So what we run into is, one, city council, a lot of times, needs a workshop day, or they need an extra meeting, a special meeting. And so those are typically the Tuesdays that we would have commission on. Now, since we only have one Tuesday that's set, usually the fourth Tuesday, which last night was a perfect example of that. We had a budget workshop. The other reason is partially because we have a lot of staff, not planning staff necessarily, but just other staff that have to be present on site after hours for additional meetings. And we currently have the Economic Development Committee that meets on Wednesdays, which would be the second Wednesday of the month, and they meet at 4. And so they essentially would meet from 4 to 5:30. If we piggybacked Planning Commission right behind that, that is less staff time, less after-hour staff time, less all of that goes into it, and frees up, some opportunities there again for other council meetings if needed. So again, I want to throw it out for discussion. I appreciate you guys considering that, and then we will follow up either via email or at our next commission meeting on if it would proceed and what that would look like then for the next steps. We'll wait to hear.
I just kind of confirmed, I just had to check online, but
Okay.
so it's like 90% I should be okay with that date change, but that's better than not knowing.
It is, and
I'll find out.
I'll
if
wait
that's
to,
all.
yeah, I'll wait. We have some time on it. Again, like I said, we wanted to throw it out, as soon as, as soon as we could, to give everybody an option to take a look. Like I said, it wouldn't be till January at the soonest, but most likely February before you would see that take place. Okay, so thank you for that. Next would be meeting on November 8th. That would be our next meeting, which is also election night. I know that poses, a lot of times, it poses issues for not just candidates, but people in general that are involved. So right now, we don't have any items scheduled. We have the potential for one item that could be scheduled, and we won't know though by the end of the week, maybe.
Yeah, potentially.
So if we were to have a very brief meeting on November 8th, would that be an issue for anybody, or would we be able to accommodate?
Can we still attend via Zoom?
We have that option? Yeah, okay.
Then I can be here.
Yeah, no conflicts, we're good.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay, and we'll let you know as soon as we know. The one potential item that we know could be coming, it's not even a public hearing. So it's not something that has to be publicly noticed, but it is something that has to be approved by the Planning Commission. So we'll let you know on that as soon as we know. Yeah.
What's the deadline?
Well, so because it doesn't require a public hearing notice, our public hearing
So it's
notice
the Thursday
deadline was
before?
yesterday morning. So it's just being able to have time to write a staff report. It is a very minor change. The applicant is kind of anxious to get it in, so we're trying to work with them, but
I'm thinking if it's not in by November 1st, it's not happening, because that gives us 7 days, and that's still cutting it really close, because that's really only 3 days, because we have to get it to the clerk for agenda packaging and all that. It may even be sooner than that.
right. And then if they don't make that, it's likely we wouldn't have a second meeting in November, because that's the week of Thanksgiving, so
Thanksgiving,
it
yeah.
might be December. So I will actually call the applicant tomorrow and
I
let them.
promise we will not have a second meeting in November. Not happening. Okay, so we'll keep you up. Thank you for that. We'll keep you updated if there indeed is a meeting that would be scheduled. Okay, so moving on to the budget workshop from last night for City Council. So I think it was recorded. Was it recorded? If anybody's interested in watching. Great meeting, very interesting. The city's in a very good place financially, and so council last night had an opportunity to look at the current fiscal status of the city, and they were able to have the opportunity to program some funds that were not, that had not been programmed yet this year. So there was close to 7 million that was unprogrammed at this point, and they were able to program that. There were some additional funds that were added to that. There was an email that went out to downtown businesses late this afternoon, that talked about some of the allocations that council made last night. So what they had was discussion, and they gave staff direction on how to allocate these funds. And then the next step is that staff will bring it back into formal action for council to actually approve that amendment to the budget. So I think we allocated in total last night somewhere around $16 million worth of stuff, a lot of it to infrastructure, a lot of it to looking at parks and other things that were out there that need some work done. We have some additional work that will be done. There's some CIP program stuff that is going to be reformatted and looked at, and I think we're going to see some shift in those funds. And I believe there's still roughly 7 or 8 million that council has to program. So we'll be looking forward to that maybe around the mid-year budget adjustment time. So all in all, that was good. But what I'm excited about that came out of last night was staff had requested a funding for a zoning code update. And so we received we've been allocated, and council will have to finally approve it, but approximately $350,000 to do a zoning code update. So a lot of the issues that we're addressing now, that we're dealing with, we will be able to have a consultant who does this, go through and look at not just our zoning code, but other components of the code, like the dark sky ordinance and some of the business license sections, and make sure that we're consistent, and what we're doing is or how the code is set up is going to help us meet the goals that we have. So not just for downtown, but citywide. So it's pretty exciting.
It is exciting.
Yeah, but it was kind of a long meeting, but if you get a chance in your free time, or if you can't sleep or whatever, watch it on YouTube. I think you'd be shocked at the work that was done last night. So I wanted to share that with you guys. And let's see, do you have anything?
I do have a couple things. So first off, I know I've been leading up to this at the last meeting and then earlier tonight. I wanted to introduce the Planning Commission to our new planner, Katie Jensen. She was born and raised here in Beaumont. She attended Wellwood, Three Rings Ranch Elementary, Mountain View, and Beaumont High School. She knows this city. She has a bachelor's degree and a professional certificate that she obtained from Cal State San Bernardino. She has been working for the city since 2011, and she started as a lifeguard. She was in that role for 2 years, and then became a recreation specialist for 4 more years. And she was previously a customer service coordinator, and she's been doing that for 5 years. So you may have been in contact with her at the front counter. She is joining us as the new assistant planner. Like I said, she's trying to help out before she's finally fully released. But I just want to ask the commission to join us in welcoming her to the department, and you'll be seeing her around a lot more.
All right. Congratulations.
Thank you, guys.
I look forward to your first presentation.
Also, I just wanted to let the Planning Commission know that Christina, Katie, and I attended the California American Planning Association Conference in Anaheim from October 1st to the 4th. So just lots of sessions on different type of planning issues and items. And for the most part, none of us were in the same class. So we kind of, did that a blanket effect. And so I know that Katie learned a lot about planning and got more excited about it. So we're excited about that. And then I just wanted to update you on some things that are going to be coming down the pipeline. We're looking at November, potentially releasing the draft environmental impact report for Beaumont Point, which was formerly called Jackrabbit Trail, off of the 60 freeway. And we are looking at releasing the mitigated negative declaration for Pennsylvania Mart that's located beyond Beaumont for public review. So once those public review processes for the CEQA documents are completed, they'll be eventually coming to Planning Commission. And that we're potentially looking at Potrero Logistics coming forward very soon. And then just an update, if you didn't watch the council meeting last week, the Summit Station did move forward. The hearing took about just as long as Planning Commission, and the project was denied 4-0 by the City Council.
Okay.
That's all I have.
I should have said this on there. So in addition to the zoning code, we did get authorization for an additional assistant planner. So
You're gonna have
Kira will have 2 able-bodied staff members to help with all the planning work, so.
Do we know anything, or what are we doing with the Grace Building?
So that actually came up last night in the overall discussion of allocating funds. So, and it's included in the email that went out to the downtown businesses, which I can forward to you guys just for your edification. But part of what council did was they allocated, I think we have $5 million in a downtown, like land ac and rehab type fund. So that's, we had received $800,000 in this fiscal year to do the downtown Beaumont revitalization plan, which that contract award goes to council next week. So you'll start getting the information on that process and the public input and the community meetings like we typically do. But then last night they decided they wanted to make a larger commitment to what's happening in downtown. So there's discussion of improved street lighting. So I think did they put $1 million towards street lights as a placeholder? And I think staff is going to go back and, I know they've done some research, but we've got to figure out what that's really going to look like. What are the lights going to look like and where are they going to go? And then, like I said, about $5 million. I think they spoke about maybe $1 million towards the Grace Street building. If you're familiar, everybody know where the Grace Street building is? So you know where Ramona's is, and there's Grace Street, that's the cul-de-sac. And then there's the dry cleaner, the old dry cleaner building up front. So the Grace Street building is it's an old church looking building that sits sort of at the end. It's Grace and 5th, I think, right around there.
Yeah.
So there's been a lot of renewed interest in that location as a downtown that could be used for something, downtown. It's a cool building. It's beautiful, actually.
Yeah.
But over the years, it's been leased out to any number of, I've heard over the years, it's been the courthouse, it's been the school district, it's been a church, it's been a bunch of other things. So we've walked it a number of times, and it is a total maze in there as far as like how the walls and everything has been sort of divided up and constructed over the years. So the idea is, and again, this is what's been spoke about but hasn't officially been approved, but I think we're on the path to something along these lines, but where the city, since it's our asset, our building, would hire someone, through the proper channels to come in and sort of gut the inside and take out all of the hodgepodge construction that's happened over the years so that we get back to the sort of original framework of the historic building that was there, and then look at what could take place there. Could it be a hub for something on that end of the downtown? Could we market it or lease it out to businesses that might incubate there and spur some interest, and then grow and ideally keep operating somewhere else in the city and repeat that process. I think it's still up for discussion on how ultimately that's going to play out, but the intent has been identified at least to do something productive with that building and turn it into maybe something that could be really cool.
Cool. Yeah, it's a beautiful building.
It's amazing. Yeah. The inside is just, you have all the old beams and it really is fabulous. So anyway, all right, that concludes me for real this time.
All right, well, thank you. Well, with that, we'll adjourn tonight at 8:49. Thank you, everybody, for attending. We'll see you at the next regularly scheduled meeting at November the 8th, unless we hear otherwise.
Yes.
Thank you.